You don't understand how how much it helps. It's funny. I used to tip butlers more than that on my trips, and now I'm over here like a $2 hooker begging for money. You know.
How did you go from having that kind of money to be in a situation where you don't have it anymore? Is it easy come, easy go?
In truth, when I was running my operation, I envisioned like
your operation was
the illegal bookmaking operation.
Got it.
Being one of the largest bookmakers in the country, I envisioned like at any moment, you know, the wave could crash, right? Because as I grew and I got bigger, it's very obvious that the more celebrities and athletes and famous people I was dealing with, the more people talked about me. And the more people talk about you, the more eyes are on you, and the wrong eyes, right? So you always feel, and keep in mind, the feds came to me and raided me in 2014, and there was about, 14, 15 agents then, and they were pretty respectful with me because I paid taxes. They saw that I just paid my federal taxes, actually. They raided me in March, and I just paid them like 2 weeks before that. And because I didn't harm people, I didn't go around busting kneecaps and really didn't chase money to the degree of the old days, the mob and whatnot. I think they just grabbed the cash and I signed an abandonment form, and away they went. So within 4 or 5 days, I received my computers back, my phones back, and I just figured, all right, that was my taxable charge from them, right? So I kept doing my business, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So to answer your question, I felt like it could happen again, but I also felt a little bit of a get out of jail free card, which was my ignorance of.
You didn't do any time that first time.
I didn't even get charged. Zero, nothing.
They just took all your money?
Took the money. And it was an abandonment form that I signed.
How much did they take?
It was under $1 million. But back then, I gambled at a very high level. My operation was probably maybe a third of what it was, just 16 months ago before I got in trouble. So I just, continued to grow it. And my point is, like, I lived my life as if it was the last day, per se, to a degree, right? Of course, I set up my family. I made sure that, our bills were covered and kids were in great schools, and, we were never going to be poor. But I also knew that if the wave crashed, that so was the finances, right? They're going to crash because the FBI is going to come in and they're going to freeze everything and take whatever they can. And then you're going to have a federal case, which I'm under now. And so then the income's gone. So like if I'm sitting there, in my mind, if I'm sitting there with $100 million, let's say, sitting in a safety deposit box or in my home, they're going to take it all. They're not going to give it back to me. I mean, I'm running a legal operation. So what better way, to handle things than to enjoy your life and spend it?
You're a gambler?
Oh, to the millionth degree.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I get high on my own supply better than anyone. I mean, I was gambling bigger than anyone. I mean, not anyone in the world, obviously. There's people that had more money than me. But based on the amount of money I had and the amount of money I made, I gambled probably more than anyone you'll meet. And what I mean by that is, like, I would go to a casino with a $2 million credit line. If I had another million or two, I would bring that too. So I would literally expose myself to every dollar I had at that moment, and even more. So knowing that I can continue to make a lot of money, but exposing yourself to that level and being in that predicament where, you can go to a casino and lose $3-4 million and then go home and owe $2 million to a credit line, and maybe you only have $500,000 in the safe. It's pretty, ballsy, because, that's a position where do you really need to risk all of that?
What kind of games are you betting on?
So anything moving, 2 crickets going across the room. I exaggerate by saying that, but like we would bet on everything. I was betting $50,000 on a golf hole with people I'd play golf with. Obviously, I was betting baccarat, blackjack at the highest levels in the country. My limit was $150,000 a hand because it's all based on your bankroll. And the casinos will only give you these higher limits based on exactly how much you have. So if you have $4 million, then usually the limit on baccarat will be $400 to $450. That's like the max they'll take.
Soft White Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link or download the mobile app and enter promo code SWU to save 40% off their Vantage plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching.
Route would be 400 to 450. That's like the max they'll take. On $2 million, it's 150,000 a hand. And that's standard for most major casinos. The smaller ones will never take that action. Now, at $150,000 a hand, what I would do to even add more to that is I would bring a crew of people with me, and I would give them money to facilitate higher limits. That was my way of money managing my bankroll, or also facilitating more limits than the casino wanted to offer me. So if I have a friend of mine, let's say you're with me, and hey, Mark, I'm going to give you 100, 200,000. When I give you the wink or give you the nod, fire the max bet along with me.
Whatever your move
whenever
is.
I go 150, which is the max, right? For me at that time, your max might be 25,000 because you don't have $1 million or whatever. So you'll bet 25,000. And then I'd have two other people doing the same thing. So at one point I was betting 300,000 a hand. And you know, these hands are every 30, 35 seconds. So if you're betting 300,000 a hand every 30, 35 seconds, and I was only doing that usually when I'm winning. But the point is, if you win 12, 13 in a row, you know, there's $3 million, right? 3.5, whatever the number is. So those are the runs I was trying to get. And they happen, of course, but as you know, when you're over time, over volume, odds are against you.
How often were you winning? I mean, were you winning overall or losing?
No, I definitely was losing. But what's great about my story is I turned the edges to my favor better than most by having my wife as a casino host, by creating the discounts and promo chips and all the things that the casinos offer. I squeeze that lemon better than most. So, you know, an average player that comes to a casino, they get comped a room, a buffet. Buffets are out, but you know, room, food, and beverage, and that's great. But they don't realize that you could squeeze the casinos for a lot more: airfare, promo chips, discounts on losses. And the casinos aren't going to come out and just tell you, these are things we give to our higher end customers. Of course, no one's going to give away things they don't have to. So I, over all this period of time, since I was 21, have just learned the system, right? I was a total donkey the first 8 years of gambling. That's all I did was lose. I was a normal player in Las Vegas, go out there and have a good time, entertainment value, lose money, but didn't mind because I was a commodity trader making good money, and it wasn't a business to me then. And then after time, when I was about 30, is when I really started treating this as a professional gambling business. And that's when the casinos, I started winning all my money back. And I can give you a great story because the MGM resort properties, they banned me. And I got a letter from them. And I was like, why are they cutting me off? I'm a great customer. Well, I call my host and he says to me, you know, Matt, you are in total value since you've been with us. I think he said it was up $8,000. And I said, I was down $3 million for like the first 8-9 years gambling. So I had a little run. I won $3 million back, right? And I said, so I'm up roughly $8,000. Why does that make me a bad customer? I've exposed myself the whole time. And he says, well, you're considered a non-profitable guest. And I said, well, explain that to me. I mean, I understand the word non-profitable. But what do you mean by that? You have over $2 million in comps since you've been playing here. And $2 million of comp value they've given you over the last, call it 10 years. So even though you've only won $8,000, you've cost the company a net of $2 million plus the $8,000, right?
Right.
And I said, okay, that makes sense. I said, but I could have lost $5-6 million. You know, you're in the gambling business. So And then what I realized is because they're so corporate now, it's not mob days like it used to be. The corporations are all business-like, and just like the sports books, which we'll get into, like DraftKings and all these things. If you are profitable or you have an edge, they just cut you off. They don't even want your business. And it's funny because they call themselves, a casino, which is a gambling establishment, but it really isn't. It's just a place where you can go deposit money, and they're going to feed you drinks and take advantage of the people that really don't have a brain, enough to where they can make the edge in their favor, just like counting cards. That's why I'm not allowed to play blackjack almost anywhere. Well, now I can't play anywhere, anything.
Because you're counting cards?
Yeah, and I learned that later in life, right? I was the donkey that just lost and lost all the time, but as soon as I learned how to count cards and I actually made it a business, all these casinos, they cut me from blackjack to baccarat only. And I was like, okay, so basically I can't have any chance, and the only way I could set foot in your casino is if you have all the edges. Yeah, that's.
How much were you betting at when you played baccarat?
Well, baccarat 300,000 hand. It was my peak. Blackjack, most of the maxes are Caesar's Palace is 50,000 for one hand. They'll let you bet 3 spots at 25. That's pretty much predominantly like as high as you're going to get in the country. I don't care how much money you have. Blackjack's very dangerous. It's faster with the double downs, the splits, and all the other, and plus the house edge on both those games was pretty small. But if you're counting cards, you'll get cut anyway, especially at that level. But if you even have a brain and you're just playing, ideal blackjack, you're probably, the amount you're going to lose is much less than playing roulette or some of these other, carnival games we call them. Those are games that if you're playing that, they just love you there all day long. They don't really care.
But aside from your personal gambling, you were also a bookmaker.
Yeah, so I've been booking since I started literally booking probably when I was 12 years old.
Let's go back to your childhood. What was your childhood like?
My childhood was great. I grew up in Cypress, California.
Orange County.
I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. My parents, it was pretty wild. So ironically, my parents were bail bondsmen. They owned a company called Bowyer Bail Bonds. So my mom and dad ran this company. My dad also had an aero tool supply company. He was a very entrepreneur, great guy, and just got back from the Vietnam War before he had me. And my mom met, and she had 2 boys already, and they were 2 and 4, my older brothers. So my dad fell in love with her and adopted her, right? Or adopted them, excuse me. And so when I came into the world, I was, 1975. My brothers were 5 years older on one and 7 on the other, and we were all real close. And my dad was great, and then his drinking problem just got escalated pretty bad. We went to a bunch of rehabs, put him through, AA many, many times, and he just couldn't kick it. And his drinking became so bad, he was drinking literally like 30 to 40 beers a day, smoking 2-3 packs of cigarettes every day, because he was running a bail bonds business where back then, we didn't have all the technology we had today. He would just sit in our house and wait for the phone to ring from the Yellow Pages and just drink beer all day and watch, Nash and, just TV shows and really do nothing, because his business was self-sufficient, right? But all it was based on is throwing in the ad in the Yellow Pages and waiting for the phone calls. So his drinking just escalated, and to the point where my mom just couldn't take it anymore, because he was just drinking all day long, right? So moral of the story is when I was 12, because we lived this great, for me, first 12 years of my life was great. I got everything I wanted as a kid. We were the kids on the block that had all the new shoes and the shorts and the baseball gear, whatever. It was all top notch. It was never like, no, you can't have this. within reason. So when I was 12, my parents got divorced. That rug got snapped from underneath me, which I think was good and bad, right? It was a lot of trauma, dealing with watching your parents get divorced and kind of being a 12-year-old therapeutic mediator between my mom and dad, because I was the one on the phone. My mom literally couldn't talk to my dad anymore. She'd hand the phone over to him and say, "Hey, you just talk to your son," And I think that even though she didn't realize it was like damaging me, so to speak, it was, because it was like so hard to be a 12-year-old kid trying to back then divorce wasn't so common. It was frowned upon. And so I was just like, how do I, I'm not Dr. Phil, how do I put this together? I'm 12 years old, but I want both parties to be happy and I want my family back. But my dad was drunk and, he wasn't abusive, but he was strict and he was very, persuasive, and my mom just wasn't going for it anymore. So when that rug got pulled out, my mom had to go create, revenue to take care of the family and keep us in the house. So she started doing everything, running creative cake company, Jaffa products, selling Mary Kay cosmetics. She was hustling. And it broke my heart to watch this woman try to feed 4 boys in this still, fairly nice house. And, just watching her just have no control over 4 rowdy boys. And so I started running a poker ring, sports betting, taking bets. These are tiny bets, right? I was 12 years old, betting $10 or $5, right? It all starts somewhere. And then I decided to get a paper route so I could make my own money and, try not to ask my mom for money. And in that process, I learned to hustle. It really taught me that I got to learn how to, fend for myself. So when I was running a paper route, I would go around as a delivering papers after school or before, and the kids are outside playing or whatever, and I'd say, "Hey, you have baseball cards?" And I said, "Yeah." And I understood the value of baseball cards, especially then. It's kind of for a kid. Mark McGwire rookie was worth, let's call it $14 back then, right? Or whatever the number is. And I would have a box of commons, they call, which are 3 cents a piece back then. And I would go to the local kids and say, "Hey, man, I'll trade you. I'll give you 50 of these cards for 3 of those." And I'd shift through all their cards and grab all the expensive rookie cards because they had no idea the value was. I worked at a baseball card shop a few years later. But anyway, I just built this portfolio of baseball cards and this big collection. And so at 16, I bought my own truck, my first car. Usually the other kids in the neighborhood would get their parents to help them and buy them a car or whatever. And I was so proud that I was able to go buy my own truck, So in that process, though, I started building a little poker ring at my house and also taking bets and just hustling and making good money, which resulted into getting a job at Chevron as a cashier at 16. And then there was like a hub for me in the middle of Garden Grove and Cypress, where all the kids from my school would come into my Chevron when I was on my shift, to where I was selling, dime bags of weed, baseball card trading, even using the credit card that a person would leave. Back then they had gas cards, like a Chevron gas card. And this is not something I was so proud of, but I was a hustler. And, a guy would leave his card and take off and not come back for 2 days. So we'd have this Chevron gas card. So then I'd just go out to the pump and let my friends pull up and fill up their gas tank. And if it was $60 or $40, whatever, charge them half. And, that's criminal, right? That's an act that I was doing at that age, which I thought was cool, but more importantly, it was trying to make money and just trying to hustle. And I look back at it now, and it's kind of the mentality that I learned at a young age that was wrong.
You've always been a hustler. Yeah,
I have. And sometimes you make poor decisions, right? When you're hustling, like you always, I've been taught wrong and right. So I don't want to justify some of the things I did, but you definitely do what you have to do, and I didn't rob people. I didn't go around hitting old ladies and taking their purse. But, when you're taking someone's freaking gas card and you're taking advantage of that, that's crap. It's not something I want my kids to do. But I got to be honest, that's the hustle that I was doing, right? But running the poker rings and the baseball card thing and just anything I could to stay away from asking my mom for money. And in that process, I'd say right around maybe 14, which this is all in my book, I started selling the Orange County Register door to door at night. So you have this lady named Paula that would come around in a Bronco and pick up about 8 of us. And I was probably closer to the younger ones. They're usually like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. And she would drive us around apartment buildings and homes and drop us off at the neighborhood and say, "All right, it's 6 p.m. I'll be back at 7. Grab you. We'll go to the next apartment complex." And so we'd go around selling the Orange County Register door to door. And I destroyed every one of these kids at sales. I was 14. Whatever they did, I did double them every night. And they all couldn't figure out what I was doing. And it was really simple. It was common sense. It was begging. It was personality. And I would knock on the door. And if you answered the door, Mark, and it was $6.99, I'll never forget, for a 30-day subscription at the time. And I said to you, if you weren't interested or you already had whatever, the other paper, LA Times, I'd say, "Listen, Mark, the LA Times is great. Nothing wrong with that. Keep getting that paper. But here's the situation. You just sign up with me. You just try our paper for 30 days. I'm trying to go, take a trip to get my mom to go to Hawaii. If you cancel after 30 days, I still get my credit, so to speak. I get paid, right? And you'll find out if this paper really is what I'm saying it is. I just sold you on how great the paper was. I said, if anything, use the coupons in it. You'll get $7 worth. You know, back then they had all those coupons in there and stuff. And I said, so I'd sell it every which way, right? And I said, at the end of the day, what's $7? I mean, you're going to make a 14-year-old kid's day. And then it was really hard for people to close the door on me and say no, which, you know, of course it happened. But I used just those sales techniques that I learned on my own to just grind and outperform everybody. And instead of knocking 100 doors, if I could knock on 50 and close more people than the guy going to 100 and just taking no every door, I'd rather sit at the door and sell a person for 2 or 3 minutes, whereas, no, I'm not interested. Okay, thanks. And they close the door. That's what these kids were doing. It was just volume for them. And I was just more substance. So that's how I started hustling and making pretty good money. And eventually my mom, you know, when she was, I don't know, I was probably 15, 16 at the time, I won this record in Orange County for a trip to Waikiki. Whoever sold the most in Orange County as a kid. So I gave it to my mom, and I'll never forget it. She went on this trip to Waikiki. I'll pay it, you know, room and board, whatever. So it was cool. It was really nice to watch this woman who was kidney dialysis technician, selling, as I explained, cosmetics, all this crap, just working so hard to keep us in a house and keep our lifestyle somewhat close to what it was, to give her something that, you know, a 14, 15-year-old kid provided for her was really cool. So
that's really sweet of you.
Yeah, it was good. So that was my kind of like hustle mentality at that time. And then right when I was like 16, 17 in high school is when the poker thing kind of got a little out of control because, you know, we lived in like I said, it was 2,700 square foot home. I had the upstairs to myself with a pool table and a jukebox and literally a bumper pool table and a poker game we flipped it over to. And my mom was never around. She was working so much. So I had this poker ring down where these kids would just come over and they'd lose everything they had. You know, $200-$300 back then was a ton of money for a 15, 16-year-old kid. And so then I had this cheat sheet of all the debt that was owed to me in the neighborhood. And it was like, it would say like, Mark, $444 or whatever, and the cheat sheet. And one day this kid went home and he had this little thing in his pocket, and his mom was doing his laundry, and it said, you know, he owed me, I don't know, 300, whatever the number was, right? So his mom did an intervention with mine, and that's when the poker game got collapsed because she realized that I had like, you know, a couple grand in inventory out there at 15, 16 years old, which back then was, this is, mind you, you know, 30 years ago. So it's a lot of money. And so that got disrupted fast, you know, very quickly. But that was like my hustle early part. And then the sports stuff, you know, I was always betting and gambling, but that wasn't like, it wasn't like being a bookie at 15 years old was really plausible because it was hard enough to get people to gamble playing poker. And sports kind of was like, wasn't so much like it is today where a lot of these young kids are already gambling way too young. And back then it wasn't really sports. It was more like poker or just kind of learning gambling. Whereas I feel like now it's so, as you know, it's on every ESPN commercial. It's just so publicly, you know, viewed as no, you know, not taboo anymore, that I think all these young kids are really getting caught up in it. And it's going to be a big problem in the next 5-10 years.
Because they legalized it.
Yeah. It's going to be really bad. I'm very concerned for kids 16 to 25 right now. Like I don't think that the world has an idea of how bad this is going to be an epidemic of kids are blowing their weekly revenue through DraftKings, FanDuel, you know, all these things, which it's legal. But the problem is, you know, gambling is the easiest addiction to hide because I could sit here and I could have just lost $3 million in a game yesterday and you would have no idea.
Yeah, you look exactly the same.
100%. And especially people know how to hide it, right? So whereas if I was on coke or meth or wasted, I'd be sitting here, I'd be barely able to talk to you.
You could tell. Yeah.
It's just so easy to see, right? So I think that's why it's the worst addiction. You know, I equate it to, depending on how bad the addiction is, but it's no different than taking fentanyl because this one you can hide. And anything you can hide and get away with and nobody knows, it's just going to grow and build and slowly get worse and more out of control.
Did you have some really high rollers that were out of control?
That's an understatement.
Tell me a story without naming a name.
Well, I have a guy that lost, he still owes me, which I no longer can collect, $12 million. And it's not even the Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal. And this particular guy has the money. He's a very, very wealthy man, probably worth, I don't know, $200 million, maybe more. His family is beyond rich, like 65th richest family in the world, I believe. So if you Google it, you won't find out exactly which one, but you'll know in the wheelhouse of who they are. And he paid me quite a bit for a little while, and then he forced me into taking a bet I didn't want to take because he owed me $2 million. And he says to me, he calls me Matty, I want to bet to win $2 million. I want to get even. I've already paid you a lot of money. And I said, well, that's fine, but I don't take $2 million bets, especially on something like this. It was a prop bet on, I don't know if you watch sports or you remember the part where the Cavaliers upset the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, okay? Mm-hmm. And that was LeBron James and Kyrie Irving before they were as well known. And Steph Curry was the favorite. They were literally 5-1. I think when he bet it, they already up 1-0 on the series. Maybe 2 even. And anyway, it was probably one of the biggest comebacks ever. The Cavaliers came back and beat the Golden State Warriors. Well, anyway, I thought he'd win the bet for sure. I mean, I would have bet the Golden State as well. But he bet $10 million to make $2 million. So literally 5-1. I don't want to take a $10 million wager from anyone, let alone a guy who is already, like, the way he was acting, I already kind of knew that. He kind of pushed it on me like this. If you don't take the bet, why am I going to pay you then? I mean, that's not right. And I said, well, you made these bets with particular limits. So I can't walk into a casino if I'm down $2 million and say I want to bet $2 million on a blackjack hand. They're going to say, go fuck yourself. That's not our limit. You lost fair and square with these limits. These are the limits you get. If you want to bet more, you have to put up a bigger bankroll. That's the rules. You can't in the middle of the trip just change them, right? Otherwise, everybody would do that. So anyway, I said, I can't do that. And he says, well, then I'm not going to pay you. I said, so you're going to stiff me or I have to take a bet I don't want to take. He said, yeah. I said, all right, okay. So I'll tell you what, let's say I take the bet. How are you going to pay me? And are you going to really pay me? Or is this just a way of, claiming that you're not going to have to stiff me? And he's like, oh, Matty, I've always paid and I'm definitely going to pay you. I said, but I may have to give you some stock options. I'll have to give you some stock, whatever. I said, okay, that's all I need to hear. So far, our word has been good, right? So I take the bet, it loses, and I get the complete sob story, literally of just, I've already paid you too much. And then to offset the threat of me, not threatening him per se, but just, spreading his name in a bad way or whatever, he said, my family has more money than you'll ever fathom, and I will put you so far into the FBI's database that you'll never even know what hit you. And so if you want to talk about it, I was like, that's interesting. I've never had that threat before. I mean, I've had the threat of, I'll call the FBI, but never the threat of, basically I'm going to bury you. I mean, he almost literally threatened me back. I said, okay, well, the good news is that we both have a lot to live for. And you're in a position where if you want to live this the rest of your life and, you want to have a problem with me, that's fine. But I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to send Guido and the boys after you, like, per se, But so that was about, 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. I mean, to this day, he's still roaming around in a, Bentley and a Rolls Royce and all his cars and lives in a real $45 million home.
And hasn't paid.
Nope. Has no intentions, obviously, which I couldn't even receive now anyway, because now I can't, unfortunately, get paid on anybody who owes me money, because that's, now that I've obviously pled guilty, that would be adding to the crime. So if someone wants to pay me, I can't even receive it. So I've definitely walked away from that, which is hard because, there's so many debts out there that I'm owed that I could use right now, clearly, because of the situation I'm under. But if that's the way it's going to be, then you just got to bite the bullet. So
and you got involved in another scandal.
Yeah,
you got more news, right?
Yeah, that one's the biggest in sports betting history, right? So, Shohei Ohtani scandal, which will go down with me the rest of my life, as whether I like it or not, is probably the best and worst thing ever happened to me. It's the best because even though where I'm sitting today and the situation I'm going through, which is really shitty to put my family through, my own gambling and my own lifestyle was getting a little chaotic. And, as much fun as it was, and I'll glorify all the good times because those are easy to talk about, it's the stress and the hidden things that were going on that, a lot of people don't see, right? You look at Jeff Bezos, for example, they all see how much money he's worth and how incredible the company is and this and that. But there's so many things behind the scenes that he had to go through to get to where he is that no one even talks about, and struggles and nights where he almost lost it and, had to figure his way or whatever. And I use him as an example because he's the richest guy around, right? But it happens with every business, right? Including yours. We all have hidden struggles that people don't see. And then when they see you driving around a Rolls Royce and a nice house or whatever you deem to be your positive stuff that you show, people don't see, they don't see, again, this is a great quote, right? Everybody loves the view, but they don't want the climb. And, the climb is where it all is. So I'm back in a climb. And the climb for me is a journey that I embrace, because I've recalibrated my life, which is the name of my book, multiple times. Everybody's always counted me out per se, in a sense of I've never gotten any family money. No one's given me $1. Everything I've done has been on my own. And I've always been alone in that sense. I have a great group of family and friends, but, alone and, my journey, my aspiration to make money or to provide and take care. I have 5 kids, and it's one of those things where people don't understand all the darkness that comes along with the glory, unless you've done it, and everyone's journey is different. So I've learned a lot of things about my situation, and talk about being in someone else's shoes is so important, because I've been the guy that's judged people as well, just like we all have. And the more I've kind of dove into this in myself, I've learned that you really can't do that. And you can't read what's in the media and believe it all either, because they make me look like a tyrant or, a predatory bad person. And maybe I am to some people, whatever, but I know who I am and my family knows who I am. So that's all I could do is just dive into my situation, reinvent myself, and recalibrate.
Were most of your debts paid without any kind of intervention from Vinny with a baseball bat?
You mean if people that owe me money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had to do all that. I definitely, I'd be lying if I sat here and told you I didn't try to intimidate a little bit, of course. I try to keep in shape. I try to speak to people very respectfully. I believe that the people that have to actually go put their hands or do these things, which is more old school, that's mafia days, and there's still guys I'm sure that do it or try their tactics that way, but they're going to end up in prison. Especially now, there's a camera in every corner. The FBI's watching. One phone call, they're probably going to have a problem. And at the end of the day, if you do put your hands on someone, you harm them, whatever, chances are they're probably still not going to pay you.
But for the most part, people would pay?
Yeah, I built relationships. It's in my business, and anyone running a bookmaking, whether it's illegal or legal, an operation, if it's legal, it's all credit-based. Not credit-based. So they don't need to worry if they're going to pay. They already have the money. But an illegal operation is almost all credit-based, right? So vetting the customer and how you run the operation is everything. My operation was ran very professionally. Probably, everyone thinks that they're the best, right? But I think that the reason my operation was so successful was I ran it like a Fortune 500 company. And, from practically board meetings all the way down, so it was no different. The only difference was it was illegal, in the eyes of the state of California and the eyes of the feds, it's illegal. So therefore it is, right? I don't really agree with all the laws, but you have to abide by them, right? I'm sure there's a lot of laws you don't agree with, but you got, you're not gonna break them if you're gonna get caught, especially, right? But that being said, I ran my business as a very strategic business.
The Ohtani case, how did that come about?
So
it was actually his translator, right?
Yeah, his interpreter was the one I built a relationship with. I met him at a poker game right after a Padres-Angels baseball game. I was friendly with a lot of baseball players, and we went to their, after the game, these guys, they tend to go play cards and screw around in the hotel because they're on the road or whatever. In this case, they weren't far on the road. They were in San Diego. But we went to a local hotel, and I was invited to the game, and literally it was a first base coach and third base coach, 4 or 5 players, and 4 or 5 random other guys in Ipe. So it was, a lot of people in the room. And we were just dicking around having fun. It wasn't even big stakes. Truly, it was, I can't even remember the amounts. It was a couple $1,000s. And they're just horsing around, having fun. I mean, like baseball players would do on the road. And yeah, I got an opportunity to meet Ipe, and he was very interested in, actually a friend of mine who saw Ipe on his phone putting in like a sports bet through a different website, of course. I think it was obviously like some offshore book or whatever. Said to him, I said, hey, Matt does that, if you need an account. And so we started speaking, and off we went. I gave him a little account to play on. It was very small, and we started building a relationship. He was a very nice guy, and from that moment, things escalated fast, very fast, because he started with this small account, and then, mind you, this is 2 years ago, roughly. So my numbers may be off a little bit. Like, for example, I think I gave him an account for $8,000 credit line.
So for those that don't know the story, Ohtani is a pitcher for the Dodgers.
Probably the best baseball player to ever set foot on the planet.
Right, and he's Japanese.
Japanese baseball player.
Doesn't speak English.
Well, that's to be questioned. I would say his English is not the best, but he definitely understands a lot of English. But yeah, he's not completely fluent, right? So his translator, especially back then, by the way, because he's gotten a lot better in time, but his translator and him were known to be best friends, and I mean really tight, and that was very obvious. So tight that he was controlling, everything from his freaking dry cleaning to his dog, and just like more than just a translator, like a best friend. From what I saw, a guy that was like his personal assistant for everything. And so the relationship with him and I that started was just a small account. And it just, as it escalated, as he, gambled much more than I anticipated, he asked for more credit, and he paid. So naturally, that's how I ran my business. I mean, if someone is honorable and I'm providing just a service, right? Mark, if you've gambled, you said, you go to place a bet, all you're looking for is a hub, a place that will take the action. And when you place the bet, if you win, you want to be paid. It's that simple. And anyone knows that the reason that a bookmaker is better at their job is they pay immediately. They pay the way the customer wants, and there's no headaches. It's really simple. My operation was ran like this. If you won money, I didn't wait for Bob, Lou, and Terry to pay you. I don't need their money to pay you. I use my money, and I would pay you on Monday, and I would collect from these three guys maybe over the next 2 weeks if they're late or whatever day they pay. And a lot of bookmakers don't do that. They pay on Fridays. They wait to collect from all their players, or they'll pay you on a Thursday. I made it a very, very important part of my business is to pay people on Mondays. And the only reason you wouldn't be paid on a Monday is if it was just a movement of money. Let's say you live in, Michigan. Well, I can't get you cash in Michigan on a Monday because FedEx is closed. So on Monday, I would FedEx you a package for Tuesday delivery. But if you're a guy that wants a Venmo or a Cash App or whatever, then promptly I would take care of that on Monday or even Sunday night sometimes. So I used my resources of having such a big base of customers to move money around. And the hardest part of running a bookmaking operation at this level is how do you move all this money in such a short window of time every 7 days it like resets, right? So if I had at my peak roughly 1,200 guys, let's say that 600 of them won that week as an example, and maybe 200 of them I don't settle with because they weren't over their settle figures. And just to explain a settle figure, right? If you and I have an agreement, let's say you have a $10,000 account and you bet $1,000 a game, whatever the number is, we might settle at $3,000. So we don't go back and forth for $800 up or down every week. So until your account hits $3,000 after a Sunday night, I won't even bother calling you or paying you or collecting. So the minute it hits $3,000 after Sunday, I'm going to call you and say, hey, Mark, you owe me $4,400 or I owe you $4,400. How do you want it, right? So on Sunday night, that's when the whole empire starts. I break down all the players. I look at everything. I see who won. That's all I care about first. My job is to fund all, in this case, as I described, 600 people as fast as I can. So now I got to figure out how to get 600 people paid within 24 hours, and I got to move millions of dollars from point A to point 600, right? So it's hard because you're in, let's say, Wyoming, and you won 4,200 and you don't have a Cash App and you don't have a Venmo, but you have Apple Pay. Okay, so now I got to go through any form of Apple Pay to figure out how to get an Apple Pay for that amount to this guy. So it's really like the dynamic of that is probably the hardest part of being a large bookmaker and figuring out how to handle that. Some people don't do electronic, some people are all cash. But that makes it even harder, right? So I tried not to limit my customers from how they want to be paid. Another attractive feature that I provided when I was a bookmaker. People loved it. Like, they don't have to, before they wake up on Monday, they have a Venmo in their account for $4,400, right? Great. The fucking guy pays right away. Nobody better than that. So, but that was the hardest task, is how do you move millions of dollars in 24 hours and get everybody taken care of? And so anyway, back to, Ipe. Ipe was a guy that as his appetite got stronger and stronger, the limits got bigger and bigger. And, people ask me all the time, did you think it was Shohei? Did you, when did you think it was? How did you even, how did this come about, right? Well, I never thought for a second it was Shohei, because I met Ipe and he asked for an account and it was small and it made sense. So as his appetite got bigger, he kind of was in the shuffle of this conglomerate business I had of big customers. So even though the appetite seems really big on the scale of normalcy, to me it wasn't. If a guy lost $50,000 in a week, and I had plenty of guys that lost or won that kind of money. It's not until I saw the wire transfer that said Shohei Ohtani for $500,000 that I realized, holy fuck, this is good and bad. And it was a moment of, like, in my mind, like, wow, this could be huge and it could be really, really bad too. And it's like I knew. I just knew that was, like, somehow probably going to be part of a demise of my business. But you've already received one for $500,000. You're a greedy, degenerate gambler. That'd be me. And you love your lifestyle. You love all the flashy things. And, your addiction of your own gambling supersede your decisions to be like, okay, do I investigate this more? Do I call Ipe and ask him questions? Do I just take the wire and keep going?
Explain what the problem was. That is a professional athlete gambling? Yeah.
So obviously, him being a professional athlete and professional or gambling on a legal bookmaking operation, I knew was a no-no. So, again, do I call him? How do I handle this? And, at that point, the crime's already been committed as far as this particular wire transfer was sent. Do I know who it was? No, I had no idea. So my thinking was, you know what? Clearly, if Shohei is the one betting these bets, or if Ipe or both or whoever it is, they're obviously okay with it. They just sent me a wire transfer. Clearly, $500,000 to a guy who just signed a $700 million contract and makes more than that in endorsements is like 50 cents to an average bear. So in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm already in this predicament. What's the difference between $500,000 and $5 million? It's the same thing to me. And in my mind, it's either way, I'm fucked. I'm already taking bets from a professional athlete that could be gambling himself, or could be, Ipe just using, borrowing money from him, or in this case, using his money, whatever the determination is. So I just kept going. And the greed in me was like, at least I'll know he's always going to pay. So, and, to be honest with you, a lot of athletes, professionals, celebrities, they bet with illegal bookmakers for a reason. They don't want their name on the street. They know that there's a much better odds of, keeping hush-hush and quiet, betting through a guy like me, as opposed to going to DraftKings, which, of course, their name's going to be out in 2 minutes. So I also understood that, and I've always respected, to this day, my clients. Like, my book does not have very many names in it. If there is a name in it, like, for example, Pete Rose, it's because, rest in peace, he passed. And to be honest, I think it actually makes him look better because, he was retired when he bet with me, but, he was a great guy and never did me wrong. And, I'm just telling a true story.
But what is your opinion of Pete?
I think I've only met him twice. I think, he had a very charismatic personality, just truly a hustler, like on the field, hustler off the field. And I just think he had a gambling problem and just got screwed. I think it's not fair.
It wasn't setting up games or
No, he never fixed the game, never bet against himself.
He's always betting on himself.
Betting on himself. I mean, and again, look at what's happening today. You have Terry Rozier, a basketball player, just got accused of possibly allegedly being in a, he makes $90 million contract. I don't know if it's rigging games or what. They still haven't really spoke about it. You have an umpire yesterday that just got fired for having a sports betting account that had some baseball bets put in it. Says it was his friend. Whatever, who knows? There's a lot more things that are going on that I think, and there's baseball players, we didn't even talk about that, that were betting on baseball, and they just got completely thrown out of baseball for life. So Pete Rose is cleaner than these people, really, in some ways. So yet here he is, the all-time hit leader, one of the Charlie Hustle, one of the most recognized humans on the planet, and he got treated really rough in this whole thing. And I get why. I understand that.
It's bad for the sport.
Yeah, and I understand that they want to make examples and all that, but look at it now. I mean, so what? You're going to make an example of all these people? If you are, then let Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame, because at the end of the day, he's no different than what's really happening. I mean, it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't just one guy. If he was the only guy, I get it, but he's not. And gambling is so, rampant right now that for these people to believe that these athletes aren't betting is crazy to me. Like, maybe they're not all betting on their sport. I mean, maybe they're being smart at just like, you're a football player and you're betting on a basketball game or a baseball player, and that's legal, especially if you're doing it through a legal entity. No problem. I get it. But if they're not and they're betting with a legal bookmaker, it's just because they don't want their name out there and they're just having fun. And they're not harming anybody. And yet, that's a problem in a lot of these cases, and it's just not fair. I mean, they have to do something about this. Maybe open the rules up a little bit and just say, look, you can gamble on anything you want as long as it's not your sport. And they still will have some people that will test the waters there, but when they try to say you can't gamble at all or you can't do this, or I think it's making it worse. Because some of these players aren't allowed to do any form of gambling at all. Every sport is different, but they have a big problem, and it's going to start coming out more and more and more. And now that you have these legal entities, you're having these players even be part of it. They're advertising it. LeBron James is for advertising for sports betting operations. So these kids look up to that, and this is the guy they idolize, and yet he's advocating for sports betting. I mean, so it's okay to make all the money off of it, but it's not okay to do it. And the way they're handling all that, I think, is just really bad at this time.
What is your opinion of gambling in general?
Listen, if you can gamble, it's no different than drinking alcohol. When you can control it, I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's great, it's a escape. It's a night out with your friends or even yourself or whoever you do it with. But just like alcohol or drugs, I mean, when abused, it's a big problem. And, I use this reference a lot. If I owned a bar and a guy comes in and he gets drunk and he ordered a bunch of drinks or whatever, and he leaves and gets in his car and kills himself or somebody, drinking and driving, that's absolutely fucking terrible. But the bartender, within reason, can't be held responsible for that. I mean, yeah, if he overserves them and watches the guy, says, I'm going to go drink and drive, and let's get in his car, that's different. But you can't monitor it that closely, right? I mean, you have a bunch of customers and you don't know if he's got an Uber or what's going on, and he gets in his car, that's his responsibility. It's not the bartender's. So, for me, like, my job as a bookmaker, when I was a bookmaker, was to, circumvent limits and try to keep people within range and obviously don't let them blow themselves up. I hate to see people get out of control. It doesn't help me. Running my business was really trying to provide a service, and I did have to babysit. I did have to self-monitor people and help them and cut them off. I did it many times. And a guy who's still in that business, they know that that's their job. I mean, truly, whether they like it or not, you got to babysit. You got to keep people under control, because no matter who you are, if you have a gambling addiction, it's going to get out of control eventually. You can't control it. It's no different than alcoholic. If you put him in a bar every day, he's going to lose it. So now you have this carrot being dangled. Even if you have a gambling addiction, you want to watch an NBA game. I mean, every 5 minutes is a sports betting app, and you're just dangling it in these people's face. So, let's be real. It's not easy for a degenerate or a person with a gambling addiction to stay away. And now you're giving them, more flavor to do it, more opportunities too.
And so you're in legal trouble now because of the Ohtani case?
Yeah, so I just pled guilty to 3 felonies, money laundering, falsified tax returns, and bookmaking. And it's 10 years for money laundering, 5 years for the taxes, and 3 years for the bookmaking. And those are the maxes. And I'm praying that the judge gives me leniency, which is in 2 months. On my 50th birthday, I'll be in front of the judge. And God willing, he gives me house arrest and probation, because that's what the prosecution is recommending, because I have no victims. Technically I have victims, right? For me to say I don't want to sit here and sound like I wasn't providing a service that didn't hurt people, because it did at times. I provided a service that people loved and helped too, in a sense of they got what they wanted out of it. But, did I have people that were losing more money than they can afford? Of course. Did I take advantage of that at times? Yeah. I'm not an angel. I can't sit here and tell you. I was at church passing out bread. I wasn't. But I also believe that what I did was, and the service I provided was, something that everyone is doing to this day. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people are doing. And, I'm a good example of it, because the notoriety of the Shohei Ohtani case and this part with the casinos, which is obviously really big too, right? You have the downfall of Las Vegas right now, as far as the money laundering and all the things that are going on there, that they were taking a part of, advocating for illegal bookmakers and even drug dealers and people to money launder money through the casinos. And the government's coming and cracked that down. And that's a whole other part of this case. That's really big. I mean, you have to understand that a casino, on one hand, is their job is to bring in business and marketing wise, and then you have compliance, who's being tugged at by the U.S. government. So, who's winning right now? And some casinos, it's compliance, and others, it was, marketing. And in marketing, who's your best client? For a gambling operation, bookies, drug dealers, weed people in the weed business who need to turn these 20s into regular dollars and, circumvent back into their system. So what better place to do that than a casino? And here lies the problem. The United States government knows that, and they're cracking down. And then some casinos are, obviously adhering to that, and some aren't. And the ones that aren't are about to catch some serious heat. And that's part of my case, right? Part of what's happening here, which I think you'll see in the next 30, 45 days, probably I believe one of the larger fines you'll see in the history of Nevada. And I think the biggest by far, but we'll see.
Your personal gambling before things got really out of control for your situation. Tell me about how much you were spending every week or weekend or whatever.
Well, I bet $4.2 million on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl in 2023.
$4.2 million.
$4.2 million. That's the biggest bet I've ever made.
How do you just hold on to your composure?
At halftime, I wasn't. I don't know if you remember the game, but Patrick Mahomes wheeled, literally, I say wheeled, but hobbled into the locker room, and they were down by 10 or 14, and it looked like the game was done.
Right.
I thought Chad Henne was coming in as my quarterback for the Chiefs at the time, and the Eagles looked unstoppable. And I pretty much thought I was toast. So I went ahead and bet $400,000 more in the second half on the Chiefs, even though I probably thought I was going to lose all of it. Because I was such a degenerate, I was like, what's the difference between 4.2 and 4.6? And ironically, for me, luckily, they came back out and won the game, and it was one of the best wins I've ever had. But
how much did you win?
I won. Well, technically, I won 4.6, but the problem was with the game is there still wasn't enough. After winning 4.6, if I had an opportunity to bet $6 million, I would have the next time. The only reason I didn't is because by the next Super Bowl, I was under federal investigation, and things have changed drastically. So the next Super Bowl where the Chiefs won, I wasn't able to partake, which was just recently, almost a year ago, obviously. And that was the first Super Bowl I sat with my hands, between my legs, saying, "Wow, this is a different feel." 4.6 or 0.
So now you're in legal trouble.
Big trouble, yeah.
And there's a Super Bowl next week.
Yeah.
Are you betting?
I would love to. I would love to, just because I like to have action in the game.
It's in your blood, right?
It is. I mean, for me to sit here and tell you otherwise, I'd be lying to you. people will say, well, how could you say that when you've gone through all this? And it's like, well, it doesn't change who I am. I mean, it doesn't mean that I suddenly just shut off the engine that I, don't
gambling is bad. I have to stop.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to be real. Like, yeah, I love to bet on the game. It doesn't even matter if it's a lot. I just like to bet something on it to make it more entertaining, right? And that's the reason people bet. I mean, if you took away gambling for sports on sports, they would lose 60% of their viewership, at least. No question.
Really?
If you ask 10 people that watch a game, 6 of them have money on it. I mean, no doubt. And if you took away the money aspect, they wouldn't watch it. I'm telling you, there's plenty of sports fanatics that don't have to gamble and love the game, and that's great. I wish I had that. I don't. And I'll watch the Super Bowl with zero money on it because it's the Super Bowl. But do you know how many football games I watched this year? 3. Do you know how many I watched 2023? 5 million. Literally every fucking game all day long, every Saturday, every Sunday, never stopped. Even on Thursday night football, Friday night, it didn't matter. I had something on every game. My average intake on a game was like $400,000. So I had a $400,000 volume on any given football game on any given day. It could be Wyoming State versus freaking Ball State on a Thursday night.
You're betting on it.
I'm betting on it, and I'm taking tons of action on it. So everything had massive amounts and financial drama to it. And
could you just not place any bets of your own and just make the money on the book?
That would have been the smart thing to do, but I decided to feed my own habit and feed it, harder than anything. So had I done that, I would be very wealthy, and maybe the government would have got it all, but I would have had a lot of money, no question.
And
but,
now it's all been legalized.
Yeah, but even I still wasn't betting legally either. I was betting with bookies too, because same reason, right? I don't want to put my name in there. I was trying to avoid all that.
The exposure.
Yeah, and it's, to be honest with you, betting with a legal bookmaker and a legal bookmaker is night and day different. I mean, when you go to, just think about it for a second, right? If you want to bet $300,000, and I have to walk into Caesar's Palace, I have to have $300,000 in cash or chips, and even the chips is a problem. If they're very weird about that, and I can explain that separately. But let's just say I walk in with $300,000, and I go make the bet. It takes 10 minutes to count all the money, even though they have the machine. It takes forever. They ask you where you got the money and why you're there. It's like they break you down every which way. And then when you win, if you do, you're going to go pick up $600, and then that's a scene in itself. You have all these eyes on you in the sports book. You got a duffel bag. You're putting $600,000 in a bag, and then you're walking through the casino. And yeah, that's one of the safer areas in the world, but you're going to get in a car at one point or go somewhere or whatever. And for a guy like me, I'm not too worried about that. But an average bear, they got to worry about getting jumped or mugged or whatever. And then, you're being exposed every which way. IRS. Even if you just won $300,000, maybe you lost $500,000 already that year. And so now you have to worry about all these CTRs going to the IRS that shows that you just had $300,000 or $600,000 in this case of CTRs. And it's just a lot more exposure and work that the average bear doesn't want, And again, same other problem here is then they got to explain to their wife what they're doing, or their girlfriend or husband, or if there's a lot of girls that bet now. And there's just too many eyes on it, and it's just too much work. Whereas if they make one phone call to a guy like me when I was in my business, the bet's done. They don't have to go to the bank. They don't have to do anything until it's over. And they may never even have to do a transaction. I may be just bringing them $300,000 in this case, right? So how much easier is that?
And how do you pay somebody who's in Wyoming or in Florida and you're in California?
It depends. Usually it depends on the amount. Wire transfers, crypto, or I'll FedEx cash. When I would FedEx cash, we've had some issues with that too, though.
When you say FedEx cash, you're not FedExing dollar bills.
Oh, no, $100 bills for sure.
Really?
Yeah, we box them up, we put them in magazines. Depends on the amounts. I've done it.
You ever get a FedEx lost?
I've had 6 big packages that were lost. One was $250,000. There's reports about it. I had no idea. I was betting with a mobster, and I can't remember which report it is, but if you go look at some of the reports, some guy in Florida that was being watched by the FBI FedExed me, I think it was $270,000, and I didn't believe he did it. I thought he just lied, and it got picked up at the station and, of course, turned over to the government. And I believed that he just made up the whole story because sounded like, something a guy who was stiffing me would do. And years later, which is only like in the last 16 months since I got in trouble, they came out with the story of, I can't even remember his name. It's if I Google it, you see it, that he was involved with organized crime and that he did send the money. And I felt bad because I kind of motherfucked the guy, right, and told him you're full of shit. And we argued about it, and I didn't believe him. But to his credit, he sent the money, so it's not really his fault. And, here we are years later, I found out he wasn't lying. And that's the biggest package I've ever lost. Wow. But I've lost 50, I've lost 70, I've lost 10. Sometimes it might be the drivers, though. Drivers aren't stupid, right? They feel a package, how easy it is to, those little zipper envelope. You just, this might be cash. You zip it open. If it is, you take it. If not, you just repackage it. They work for UPS or FedEx. It's easy. So you have to really package it correctly. And obviously I don't do that anymore, but you learn, resources on how to do it. I mean, I had the 4 FBI agents waiting for Nicole and I at the airport one time when I landed, because I went through the airport with, it was like 170,000, and they scanned it in Las Vegas. I just won it all fair and square at the casinos. But because I was known from 2014 in the system as a legal bookmaker, I knew that any money they scooped, I wasn't getting back, because I'm not going to go fight it. I'm going to go to court and say that that's my cash, and they're going to say, well, where's your income? How do you make a living, and where'd you get it? All things I couldn't do at that time. So I went through the X-ray, and it looks like when you put, what I've learned as well is you never, if you're going through an X-ray through the airport, you never put all the money together, because it looks like bricks from the casino. They literally gave you a $100,000 brick. It's like this big. And then obviously the 70K was 10K wrappers. And when you go through the X-ray machine, the guy looking at or woman looking at the X-ray machine will see, it looks like a bomb, because the way the brick looks, and they can't tell until they open it. So of course they open it and look at it, and he's like, "Oh," you saw his face, like, "Here's 100." He didn't know how much, but here's a big chunk of cash. And he's like, "Oh, well, what's this for?" I said, "Well, obviously I'm in Vegas. I just won at the casino." I said, "You can call and verify it. Here's my casino host." So he said, "No problem. Let me just tell the supervisor." He went in the back and told him. Came back out. "Oh, you're free to go." So I get on the plane. Obviously, it's a 45-minute flight from Vegas to John Wayne. I landed John Wayne, and lo and behold, we're sitting there waiting for our luggage to come off the thing. And of course, we have it in a bag on us. We didn't check it in. And I see 2 guys come down with badges, and not police badges, but like a badge. And they're looking. You could tell they're looking, and then they look at me, and they're like, "Matt Bowyer?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, fuck. Hi, I'm agent whatever." I'm like, "Oh, great." So one of them stayed with me, and the other one had to go get a woman, because my wife, we weren't married at the time, I think we were engaged, was with me. And to frisk her, they had to have a woman present, right? So luckily, when the gentleman actually had his back turned, I looked at Nicole and I just told her, like, gave her the nod. And she literally, because I don't know if you know John Wayne Airport well, but where the baggage claim and the front door isn't too far. It's only like 20 yards. And so we were closer to the door. So she slowly, as I kind of kept him occupied, she slowly just took off. And of course she had the bag. So he finally realized, he goes, where did she go? And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I don't have to answer anything." I said, "I don't know." So he's looking around. You could tell he's like disheveled. And there's a very attractive girl, like, I don't know, like 30 yards away. Didn't look like Nicole. She was pretty, and he grabs this poor girl when the other girl comes back, the FBI agent, and they take us in the back separately, because that's what they do anyway. And I just hear him yelling at this girl's yelling, like, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't even know this guy," And I'm just like, oh my God, they think it's her, And so I felt bad for her, because poor girl doesn't know me. And they're going through her luggage. They're going through my luggage. And I grabbed the luggage off, both mine and Nicole's, off of the thing, because they said, "Which one's yours?" So as they're digging through all our stuff, looking for this cash, obviously it's not there. And I'm never being like I'm always respectful to law enforcement, because at the end of the day, they're just doing their job. If I agree with them or not, they're not the ones who signed up to be there with me. Maybe they signed up for that job, and to be honest with you, when I try to talk to most of them, I think they just feel bad, because I think they know I'm not like some, bad criminal, so to speak. I'm not hurting anyone. It's a bookmaking operation. but they're doing their job. So anyway, they're going through all our stuff, and he says to me, "Why do you have a bag of women's clothing?" Because they still think that she's with me. I said, "Anything goes in Vegas." And he goes, "Oh, you're going to be a smart ass." I said, "Listen, in all due respect, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but I'm not going to answer your questions. And if you're going to arrest me, then go ahead and arrest me. But I'm going to get an attorney if that's the case, you know." And they said, "Well, all right, we searched everything. You're free to go." So at the time, Nicole went to across the street. There's El Torito, and I got my valet, got my Bentley, put my bags in there, and I was like looking behind, you know, because now I think they're following me. So my car is fast. Well, I don't have it anymore, but when I did, so I just like zoomed around a little bit just to make sure there's nobody behind me, and then called her and grabbed her from El Torito. We went home, and I immediately got the $170,000 out of my house because I didn't know if I was getting raided the next day, and I won it all fair and square. It was all money I won in Las Vegas, but you know, that's one little instance. But you know, there was another occasion where my wife and I got arrested in the Bahamas, and that was one that I would like to forget, but I can't. It's probably one of the worst days. Aside from watching her handcuffed and raided, I went to the Baha Mar. It's a beautiful casino. It's a replica of the Win in the Bahamas, and I won about $140,000. And this story is wild because, and it's all in my book. It's wild because like the way we got treated and the way this whole thing went down was absolutely bananas. So we had a great time. The reason we were there was we were planning our honeymoon. Planning our bachelorette party. And we were going to get married like 3-4 months from there. So we were doing we're deciding a location. And the Baha Mar Casino is literally the Win on a beautiful island. It's gorgeous. And it was fairly new at the time, like only a few years old or whatever. So we went there and I gambled like I always do. I think I had $1 million line. And her and I won like 140. So the next morning, our flight was early. So we get to the airport at like 5:15, 5:30. And, you know, when you go to the airport and this customs, by the way, U.S. Customs in the Bahamas are in the Bahamas. Whereas, you know, you fly somewhere else and you fly into LAX, it's here in LAX. Because, I don't know, the treaty, we have the Bahamas, whatever. So U.S. Customs there, you go through it on property. So we hit the button and it's red, the light. And of course, I answered all the questions. And one of them I answered incorrectly. Do you have over $10,000 in U.S. currency? So I get pulled for excess screening, right? So they pull all our bags up. And mind you, because of what I just described to you about the airport, and I know that if they ever know I have money, they're grabbing it. Because, you're not going to go after it. So I always try to hide it as much as I can. And again, I did no crime. I won the money fair and square, but it doesn't matter. You know, they're going to grab it. So in all our luggage, I would put $10,000. Now I learned the brick thing doesn't work. So I'd put it like spread it out. You know, one in a toiletry bag, one in a sock, one in, you know, whatever. So this $145,000, I think it was, 140, whatever it was spread out in like 5 luggages or 4. And so as they dissect all the luggage, these 2 customs officers, you know, this guy did not like me. I think, you know, here I am doing everything he would love to do, right? I have a beautiful woman, gambling at the highest levels, have a bunch of cash, nice watch, traveling through the Bahamas, and he's sitting in a desk and he probably hates me. And I realize that, and I'm not trying to be an ass, but I was very respectful, but he's just kind of giving it to me, you know, and I'm like, so he says, "How much is here?" And I said, "Honestly, I don't know." I said, "Probably 150, 160, I don't even know." "You don't even know how much money is here?" I said, "Sir, I gamble for 4 days straight. The amounts I gamble, whether it's 160 or 120, doesn't really matter to me." I said, "I won the money. You can call and verify. Here's my casino host. Call the casino." And he's like, "Well, if you don't have the exact amount, then, you know, that in itself is telling me you have no idea why you're smuggling this through." I said, "Smuggling? Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, this is a failure to declare. That's a felony." And I said, "With all due respect, officer, I've heard a lot of people who have gone through customs, and if they don't declare the money, it's just given up. Like, it's forfeit. So if you're going to forfeit the money, I mean, that'll definitely piss me off, but that's my fault. I understand." And he said, "Well, in truth, we're going to turn you over to the Bohemian government, and you will forfeit the money." And I said, "Turn me over to the Bohemian government for what?" He's like, "Well, this is a crime. It's a felony." I said, okay. So I'm trying to calm Nicole down. So he's being a real ass. He's counting all the money in front of us. And anyway, so he takes us and turns us over to the government. And I'm like, all right, this is probably another part of the procedure. We're going to miss our flight, obviously. And they're taking the money. So we get in this Bohemian police van and we go to their local county police station, right? And so we sit down and we're talking to these two Bohemian officers that seem fairly kind. And it was like the warden of that little jail. And he's like, all right, after I asked us a bunch of questions, I need you to stand up. I said, stand up for what? And the guy comes over with the cuffs, and I look at Nicole, and she starts hyperventilating. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. What are you talking about? He's like, we're going to arrest you and her. And I'm like, arrest me for what? He's like, it's a felony. And I said, well, I get it, but you guys are taking the money. I didn't really commit any crime here. I just hit a button wrong and filled out a form wrong. He's like, well, sorry, but that's our laws here. And I said, well, what are you arresting her for? Well, she's with you, and she's committed the crime too. I said, hold on a second, man. I said, you're not going to do this to her. Like, you can arrest me all you want. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but you're not going to arrest her. So, mind you, that went nowhere. So I demanded to speak to the U.S. Embassy, spoke to the U.S. Embassy, and it was an older gentleman, and he said, what's your crime? Asked everything. He said, well, it was a Sunday. He said, all right, I'll see what I can do. But he didn't really give me any answers or say much. So I was like, that didn't look good. So they take us back to a holding cell. And the holding cell there was like 3 and 3, so 6 cells. And never frisked us. I had my cell phone in my pocket, which I thought was crazy. You're in a jail cell and you have your cell phone. But mind you, it's cement, so there's no service. And she had hers too. And so she's in a cell next to me where I can't see her. And she's in a cell with a woman on crack, Bohemian lady. And across from me is 3 Bohemian guys. And then in my cell was a little Canadian guy who just got in trouble at the casino for grabbing a waitress ass. So they threw him in jail. And anyway, so they didn't tell us anything. How long we're going to be there, what's happening. So after about 10 minutes, and my wife is we weren't married then, but Nicole at the time was hyperventilating. I mean, she's claustrophobic. Here's this beautiful girl who did nothing wrong, is now in a jail cell in the Bahamas. We missed our flight. No idea what the hell's going on. So your mind plays a lot of tricks on you. And so I couldn't calm her down because, again, I can't see her or even make eye contact with her. But she could hear me. And I said, all right, fuck it, man. I called the guards. They don't come over. And I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to pound the living fuck out of this guy next to me in this fucking cell. I'll get their attention. And she hears me say that. And this poor little guy, he's like 5'6", little Canadian guy, looks at me and says, what the fuck did I do, man? I said, you're in a bad situation, man, circumstances. And she's like, no, babe, calm down, hold on. So I realized that even though I was starting to lose my mind, just listening to her hyperventilate, that was actually helping her calm down, calming me back down. So it worked, and that wasn't my objection. But then she's like, no, babe, just calm down. I'm okay. So that worked, and I said, all right. So she goes, don't make matters worse. So I would say about an hour and a half, 2 hours go by, and they come grab us, and they take us to now the actual jail, the real jail. Like, that was just a holding cell. And I'm like, wow, this is fucking real. And they're not giving any answers, right? I'm trying to ask I'm a very reasonable guy. I said, can you just tell me what the hell is going on? I mean, how long are we going to be here? Like, what's the situation? And he's like, honestly, it's Sunday. Obviously, the court is open tomorrow. So I'm like, so we're going to be here overnight? He's like, I don't know how long you're going to be here. And I'm like, wow. So we get to my wife is hysteric at this point. So we're driving maybe about 15 minutes to the next jail. And we get there, and now it's like a much more serious facility. Like, there's no windows. It's like, so as we come in to make room for her, because she's the only girl in this jail, what I believe at least, they have to move 3 guys out of one cell, and they're shackled. And she sees that, and she just starts literally going to hyperventilation, like complete. And the warden says, are you harmed yourself? And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, she definitely is. She's going to harm herself. Because I realized at that point that he was thinking about her as opposed to, and I said, oh yeah, she's definitely going to harm herself. So at that point, they allowed her to go back to the other jail cell where at least there was like, not windows per se, but it was just like a different format. I didn't know where they're going to take her, which is the most unprotected feeling I've ever had of her or my kids in my whole life. But anyway, they took her, and then they opened a cell for me, and there was 3 guys in the cell. It was a 2-man cell. And there was this guy in the corner. It was because there's 2 little cement beds. I mean, the jail cells there are disgusting. There's feces everywhere. Not that they're pretty here, but I mean, it's twice as bad. And there's like shit everywhere. I'm so gross. And so I get in there and they say, "What's up, Cracker?" I said, "Fuck, I don't know if that means, here we go with the racism stuff, And I said, "Not much, man." And, at that point, I'm just getting ready to fight 3 guys because I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And this one kid's laying on the bench, and it's weird. They don't have like jumpsuits like over there. You're whatever clothes you're in your clothes. They don't give you anything. So he's got like socks and Crocs on, and so I'm just evaluating like this is going to go down. Like I gotta see this little circumference of room. What am I going to use when there's no weapons? And they said to me, "What are you in for?" And I said, "A lot of bullshit, man." And they're like, "No, what are you in for?" I said, just a bunch of shit, man, a bunch of money shit. And because I didn't know their motive or what. And I said, "What are you here for?" And he said, "I got caught smuggling drugs from Florida, and the other kid just committed murder. He was like 17 years old. The other guy didn't even ask because he was sitting there just quivering. He was clearly on some sort of drug." So I sat there, and it was Sunday, probably at this time, maybe 11, 12, and there's no food, no water, and the toilet doesn't work. And I look over on the ground, and what little ground that's left, because it's very small, it's a 2-man cell, there's 4 of us, and there's like all these like water bottles, and you just piss in the water bottle. And they said, "If you need to pee, just use that." And I said, "All right." So when you stand up, you're, holding your junk and pissing in a water bottle, which is disgusting. And if you saw how gross this cell was, that was probably the cleanest part of being in the cell. And so I kept yelling for the guards, and they told me, "Cracker, don't waste your time, man." I was like, "Did they fucking tell you guys anything? Like, how long are we here?" They're like, "You're not getting any answers." So I'm like, "All right." So my mind just raced, right? So Monday, the next day, I didn't sleep 1 minute because you can't. I mean, you're just fucking sitting there. And the next day was probably Monday at like maybe 9 a.m. They came and got me, and they took me to the courtroom. And, you're shackled. And I see my wife come in, shackled from the other side. And we both look like dirty at this point, like castaway, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but it's gross in there. You're sweating, your adrenaline's running, you probably stink like a fish, and there's shit everywhere. It's just gross. And so we both look like we've been through hell. And she's crying, and I'm just like, fuck. And I'm starting to cry because thank God she's okay. And they bunch us together. We get in front of this judge. She was a woman. And she fucking would have talked to me like I just committed murder. "What do you think this is, coming through our country and, trying to smuggle money through here?" And I'm like, "Lady, ma'am," I explained myself. Didn't matter. So we had to hire an attorney. This is the part of the story that's really insane. We had to hire 2 attorneys, one for her, one for me. I had no money because they took all our money. And they don't accept credit cards. We have an American Express Platinum card. I'm like, "We'll pay, whatever." "You can't do that." "Well, how am I going to get you money?" And this is the part that is so bananas that I don't think people that listen to the story won't believe it. And he says, I said, "The only way I can get money is if I go back to the casino. I have a credit line." And the lawyer looks at me and says, "Okay, so you can go get the 10, it's 5,000 each, 10,000. And then we had a court fine too. It was 2,000. So I said, "Yeah, I can get the 12K. And he goes, "All right, hold on. So, Your Honor, can we ask for an exception? My client needs to go back to Baha Mar so he can retrieve the funds." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Is this real right now?" So I get in a police car, and mind you, it was probably 35 miles to the casino, I'm guessing. I'm in a police car. They put the sirens on, and they drive like nuts there because the roads aren't paved like here. And I drive to the casino, and I look like a castaway. And I walk in there. This is a guy, I'm usually glamored out and $1 million credit line. I walk up to the casino cage and I say, I need to withdraw 18,000. And the reason I said 18 is 12 would cover everything. And then now I knew I have to buy flights. Just wanted to have a few dollars in my pocket. And they said, Mr. Bowyer, you just won 145,000. You know the rules. We can't just give you cash in your credit line. You have to play. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm just got out of jail here. I literally just went through customs and the whole 9 yards. And she said, we still can't help you. I says, you're telling me I have to go to the tables to win my freedom right now? Literally? Like, she says, I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you this is the only way I could give you money. You need to have chips and you can't owe your credit line. I said, holy fuck. The officer standing like 10 feet behind me, I'm in a cashier's cage in a nice casino. So I turn around, I walk over to him. I said, sir, I have to go to the tables. I'm not going to explain to him why. I said, I have to go to the tables to pull the chips. But literally, he doesn't think I'm going to gamble. He's not listening to this. So he follows me over to the table. I sit down in the high limit room, and I said, I'd like a marker. What do you know? I bet 20,000 in the first hand. Loser. Of course. 40,000 next hand. Loser. My maximum bet was 70K here because I had $1 million credit line. Next bet, max bet. Loser. I lost 4 hands in a row. I now owe the casino all this money. And because I just spoke to the casino cage manager, the president of the casino happens to be down. He comes running down. Mr. Bowyer, oh my God, well, hold on. I explain to him what I'm doing. He goes, no, stop. You don't need to gamble anymore. Let's go to the cage. So we go to the cage. You get the 20 grand. Cashes me out. And obviously I have cash now. We go back to the courthouse. And now I lost all those hands at the casino. So I now owe the markers there. They took all the money I did win. And so when I got home, I had to wire them the money to cover this new gambling loss I had. And they released us to customs it was about 4:00 on that Monday when I finally got all this done. And we got in this immigration van. It was like a green jungle van. Like they were wearing green outfits because now it's not, they're military or they look military. And they drove us to the airport and they literally watched us get on the plane as if I wanted to stay there. I said, you guys have nothing to worry about. We want to get the fuck out of this country. No chance do I want to be here right now. So we flew to Florida. We got a room at the Fontainebleau. And Nicole and I never in our life enjoyed a shower and a good night's sleep like that in my life. And that's the only time I've ever really been in jail. So if I do go to prison, at least I started at the worst possible, format. But that story is bananas because you'll never hear a gambling story like that. At least I haven't. And it's all 100% real. And it's like to go to this island and have a blast and win money and end up in a prison cell or jail cell and have to go to a casino to win your freedom.
So you spent the night
Spent the night there.
Spent the night in prison?
Yeah. And it was the longest night of my life because I don't know if she's getting raped. I don't know we're in a foreign country. And the way things were going, it was like a twilight zone for me. It's so surreal because at this point in my life, I've been through a lot of things, but never like this weird traumatic, area because we live a great life. I'm not saying that we're better than now, but we definitely weren't expecting to ever have her in a fucking jail cell. That was wild. I felt so, unprotected for her, and that was my job, right? Is to protect my family. That was harsh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the stress of this lifestyle would get to you after a while.
Yeah, it's weird. I've been told that I handle stress better than anyone's ever seen.
Really? Truly,
I don't know if that's a good thing, right? Because it means you're bottling it all up and masking it. But I think they call me Matty Ice. Matt Ryan used to call that, right? I think I just when the money's on the line, I'm more focused. Golfing for 50,000 a hole. I'm not even a good golfer, but the ability to like really focus and narrow in your focus, even if you're bad at something, and be better at it. I think that's a natural gift, So I've learned to really hone in on that. It's like, you wouldn't know sometimes if I'm down 4 million or up 4 million. I act no different. Of course, inside I am. I mean, fucking mind's racing. Sometimes when you're winning, it's worse than losing. I know that sounds really strange, right?
How's that?
Because when you're winning, the objective is to win. So then you come together as, are you winning enough? Like, Did I make some mistakes? Why am I only up $4 million? I should be up $6 million. And that's a gambler's mentality. That it's like we spoke about this earlier, right? People ask me all the time, why can't you just bet $1,000 on a game, right? And I'm like, well, because then I feel like I lost $499,000 because I would have bet $500,000.
It always ratchets up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it never stops, and it would have never stopped. And that's why I said before, if the FBI didn't raid me and put me in this predicament, well, I put myself in this predicament. Let me rephrase that. But if that didn't occur, then I would be gambling even higher right now than I was a year ago.
It wasn't going to just taper. You weren't going to slow down.
The appetite for me just got bigger every year. And my wife used to say to me all the time, she's like, you just lost, like last year, 2023, I lost $9 million in one casino. And she's like, next year you'll lose 12. And I said, yeah, but I'll make more. Like that was my mentality. So whatever the case is, I'll just make more. And I would just find a way to grow my business and make more money. So that's not the right rationality, but that's what it was. Because at the end of the day, if you have an addiction, you're going to do whatever it takes to feed the addiction. And that was my addiction, was gambling. I never really did drugs. I smoked weed like in high school a few times, did a few gummies in my day, but that was not my thing. I've never even tried cocaine, never even tried anything, ecstasy, nothing. And the reason I didn't try it is because addiction is my family. My little brother is a heroin addict. He's in jail right now. My dad was an alcoholic, and I know these are vices that are in my blood. So I'd rather just keep one, which is the big, but the problem is the way our family works is we do it to the extreme. If I did cocaine, I'd be the guy that did the whole mound, until I fucking probably was in the hospital.
What's it? I mean, we're going to talk to your wife. I'll do a separate interview with your wife, maybe with you as well.
Sure.
I just imagine it must be a crazy, stressful lifestyle for everyone involved in your circle.
Yeah, it is. And it's sad because I'm the one who made it crazy. Like I could have did this like nonchalant.
Have you ever had a regular job?
Yeah, I was a Series 3 licensed commodity trader for 11 years.
That's right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I was the #1 retail broker in the world for 11 years straight. It's the same thing. It was an addiction. I wanted to be the best. And everything I've ever done is be the best or don't bother. And, everyone says that, right? Oh, I want to be the best. Well, of course they do. But literally for me, if I'm not the best, it drives me fucking insane. Or if I'm not at the highest level of whatever it is, it's not good enough for me.
You must end up getting involved with all kinds of shady characters when you're doing this.
Yeah, you do. And you weed them out as much as you can. But
I'm sure you got some crazy stories about that.
I have a wild one. So I had a guy who came to me through a casino host in Las Vegas. And part of my operation too, I want to say this, the reason I think I built a really big bookmaking operation was I used my tentacles better than anyone. So my casino hosts that I had all throughout Las Vegas were feeding me customers, which is all part of the problem in Las Vegas right now. But not all of them, but some of them were feeding me customers. And even people that weren't casino hosts, like guys in Vegas, if they're a valet or, bellman. I mean, I try to get along with everybody and treat everybody great. So if you ran a restaurant or a nightclub, you have big customers coming or gamblers, you shoot the shit and you find out they're betting sports, I got a guy for you. Introduce me, I give him a cut. Everybody was getting envelopes when I came to town. So, those envelopes were side hustles for all of them. And my job was to take care of their clients, and their job was to feed me business, and everybody won, So that being said, I got fed a client, and he came in. He won, first week he played with me. No joke, he won $112,000. He drove down from Fresno, which was a red flag, because on Monday morning, when a guy's willing to drive from Fresno to your house to pick up $112,000, the first week he wins, and it's so urgent, it's really, even though I pay on Mondays and I offer it, it was just the way he was about it. It was like, yeah, I'll be there in 3 hours, So I was like, okay. If he would have said, yeah, tell you what, I can't get down there today, but I'll see you Wednesday, it's just a better sign, right? And so anyway, came down and picked up the money. Next week he loses $88,000. And here we go. Phone doesn't work anymore. Just called him for 5-6 days straight. Just paid the guy $112,000 on Monday. So I called him Monday, Tuesday, went multiple times. I realized this is the game we're going to play, right? So 2-3 weeks go by, and I have a friend of mine that works. He was a bail bondsman for Aladdin Bail Bonds. And I said, hey, man, can you run this guy's name? Just find out where he lives. So he does, and he gives me a couple addresses. And one was in Fresno, and then one was a brand new location. Like he just moved there. So what do? I jump in my car and I drive down to Fresno. And I've never been to Fresno, but it's not really a place I want to be. But he was in a very nice neighborhood, which was brand new. And that made me feel a little bit better because clearly he is not broke. I mean, it's $1 million home in Fresno back, this is like, shit, man, 14, 15 years ago. No more even. Anyway, a long time ago, was $1 million home, was a very nice home. So it was a big house. And so anyway, I knock on his door. And when I get there, it's probably, I don't know, 6 at night, dark, and the light pops on, and a kid answers the door, probably 15 years old, 16 years old. And I said, hey, is Robert here? And he says, he's kind of looking out. He says, yeah, no problem. Dad. And then, so now I realize it's this kid. I figured it was, right? And so he comes to the door, and you know how like when you turn on the light switch, your front door, you could see, but if you don't know the person, you're kind of, do I know this guy? So he comes out, and you could tell he's looking at me like, he's only met me once, right? And he says, hey, can I help you? I said, yeah, Robert, you sure can. I'm here to pick up my $88,000. He says, huh? And I said, yeah, it's Matt. Remember you just drove to my house and picked up $112,000 a week ago? He says, oh, okay. And his son's like kind of, I don't know, 12 feet back, kind of being nosy. And he says, hold on a second. So he closes the door, and he's gone for, I don't know, I'm going to say 12 seconds. He comes back, and he says to me, you want to come in? I said, no, it's okay. We can go outside. So we start walking to the front of his driveway, and I see like right here he's got this little bulge, right, kind of, So I realized that he fucking grabbed a gun. I'm like, wow, all right. So now I'm a little nervous, clearly. And I said, so Robert, how do you want to handle this? And he says, hate to tell you, but I don't pay bookmakers. I said, well, I wish you would have told me that 2 weeks ago. I said, you picked up $112,000, man. The cardinal sin in a bookmaking operation is to take their money and then stiff them and not pay them. It's one thing just to stiff a guy, but like in our world, when I was a bookmaker, if you take the guy's money, you got to at least fucking give him his money back. If you're going to fuck the guy, there's nothing worse than that, like truly. And so I said to him, I said, listen, man, you owe $88,000. I don't want this to escalate, but if you're going to try to play this game, this is going to escalate. It's going to escalate quick. And he said, oh, yeah? So he fucking pulls the gun out, right? And he's like this, and I can see his hand is like shaking. So I know he's fucking nervous, but I'm fucking shitting my pants, but I'm acting as if I'm not. I looked him right in the eyes and said, you better fucking shoot me then, motherfucker, because I'll tell you right now, you're either going to pay this fucking figure or there's going to be a big fucking problem. And he's shaking. And, I was probably 30 years old. And I was even bigger and better shape, and I thought I was King Kong at the time, which was funny because I wasn't. And he says, I could tell he's nervous, and he starts to put the gun back down. He says, well, we can work this out. I said, yeah, how's that? He says, you can give me accounts with other bookies, and I'll just shoot into them. And if I win, I'll pay you. And if I lose, I'll just tell them the same story. I said, that's not going to fly, buddy. I'm not going to ruin my reputation and have you go around fucking other people. I said, I'm going to do this. We're not going to talk any further. You've already insulted me every which way. I drove all the way down here. I know you have the balls to put a fucking gun at my face. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to let us both cool down. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive home. And you're going to send me the money tomorrow. And if you don't, we'll see who comes back here. It won't be me. And you deal with that because you got a beautiful little boy in there in a nice house. It's up to you. I'm not threatening you. I'm not saying anything. It's up to you. Calls me the next day. Can I send you 40 grand? I said, no, you can send me 88,000. Exactly what you owe me. If not, don't bother calling me. All right. He wired the money. I was shocked. It's one of the best collections I've ever had because...
You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to anyway because what am I going to do, right? I mean, I'm risking everything. That's the thing. As an illegal bookmaker, you're an idiot if you start putting your hands on people or doing this. I mean, you're just asking to go to prison. I mean, it's your job to control and vet your customers. You can't control the people who are going to stiff you. It's going to happen. But the ones who believe that they're going to go out and intimidate and and put their hands on people, they're going to prison or they're going to lose their operation. It's going to be a big problem. It's a business. It's a write-off. And until you realize that, so years later, I just realized like every mistake of every person that doesn't pay me it's my fault. I didn't vet them correctly. I gave them too much credit. I let them bet more than they should have, or I didn't ask them to post up. You know, as any illegal bookmaker knows, whenever you're in doubt, you make them post at least half the money or a portion of. And that's become more relevant because I'll tell you this, Mark, in the last 7 years, there's more stiffs and more people that don't pay than there ever has been in the history of sports betting. Because most people betting sports know that the bookie is not going to do anything at all. Now, do they want a problem? Do they want the phone calls and the headaches? No, but they know that at the end of the day, this guy's most of them are running a good operation. They make good money. And going and beating on some guy's forehead is just going to get them in worse trouble. So, but they get a bad name in the business, and as they bounce around from bookie to bookie, all the bookies talk. And they'll just say, oh, this guy, John Smith, he's no good. Don't take him. And so he'll get denied almost everywhere. It's almost like a credit line, you know, throughout the casinos. The minute you go bunk on a casino, you're dead everywhere else. It's all in the notes. They all share everything.
Most of your business was in the U.S., or did you go overseas?
Yeah, I had a couple in Hong Kong. I had one in Australia, but that was really it. Almost all U.S. So three customers overseas, yeah. And that's hard because most overseas guys American football is not their thing, or the time zone, you know. So maybe they're usually people that moved, you know, were U.S. citizens and moved. And also overseas is mostly soccer, and they have a William Hill in every corner because legalized betting has been there for a long time already. You know, it's not so. We're the ones who are behind, you know, in this whole epidemic.
Do you think gambling should be legal here?
Absolutely,
it should be.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous that it's not. I mean, they'll make more money on it. Number one, number two, they won't have as many bookmakers, right? I mean, there's always going to be illegal bookmakers because people don't want what we discussed earlier. But at the end of the day, I mean, the more legal it is, they're going to take away a lot of that business. They already started to. California is just way behind. And, you know, why not make it legal? Why not have a shop you could walk to and bet? You'll have a lot of people that would be more comfortable. I mean, some people don't want to bet a legal bookmaker, right? They don't want to deal with some guy they barely know, you know, knowing where they live, or have to go meet them in a parking lot, or, you know, however version, or having a Venmo from someone they don't want to. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that a legal book is better. I think there's more reasons why illegal is better, but you can argue on both sides.
If you hadn't gotten caught up with the Ohtani case, you'd be living a different life?
For sure. I'd be higher than high,
yeah.
You know, as far as just bigger and bigger, you know, because, you know, when I built my operation, I never anticipated being as big as it was, but I also can't say that I didn't, because everything I do is 100%, right? So I don't go into anything half-assed, and I don't go into anything thinking it's not going to be big. And that's the way I view everything in life. I wish I was sometimes more. I always use this reference I have in my Instagram. You'll look at some of the clips on my Instagram. I talk about being a plumber or an electrician. And sometimes it looks like I'm talking down about those people. I'm not at all. I'm actually envious, because sometimes, you know, a plumber goes to work, he clocks out, whatever happens to that fucking work, you know, the owner goes out of business or loses his job, yeah, it's going to affect him, but he can go get a job as a plumber somewhere else, right? Like, he leaves his job there, it's gone. He goes home, he could be present as a father, he could be present as a husband. There's nothing to worry about. I mean, there's basic concerns, right? But they're so basic, and his life is so basic, and sometimes basic is good. I don't have that appetite, but there's many times I do. But then there's moments where I was on a private plane flying to the Dominican Republic to see Andrea Bocelli with my wife, and doing a meet and greet with 18 of my family members on a jet with $3 million, that I'm glad I'm not a plumber. Does that make me glorifying my situation and an asshole? Maybe to some people, but to me, I aspire for nice things and aspire to be better than what I consider to be the average bear. But there are moments I wish I was the average bear, because the stress and the ups and downs and situation I'm in right now, that plumber's laughing at me. He's saying, yeah, look at you now, you dumb idiot, you know? Yeah, you're on that jet, but your wife's in handcuffs. You know, you're facing a federal case. You might go to prison. that's not a concern of his, right? So there's moments, good and bad in everything you do and all your choices. But I look at the good times I've had, and I've lived, I'll be 50 in, 2 months, and I've done more than 99.9% of any person on the planet has done in already 49 years.
In terms of what?
Everything.
Like you've experienced
everything. I mean, other than I've never done drugs, but I've lived the life of a rock star. Literally, my son is 3.5 years old. Go back 16 months ago. So really his first 2 years of his life before I got in trouble, he's been on like 45 private jets. I mean, every 2 weeks he was on a private plane with caviar and Cristal. I mean, not that he partakes in that. And we were flying to all different parts of the world on a plane with butler service, with the nicest restaurants, the nicest, we had a pool in our backyard. The rooms I stayed in were 12,000 square feet with literally a backyard with a pool, indoor pools, saunas, jacuzzis, butler service 24/7, anything you wanted. When we would check in the hotel, they had a list of what we required. Not required, wrong word, asked for, but to them it's a requirement. They had a crib set up, bottles. If my son liked Jiffy peanut butter, they had fucking 3 bars of Jiffy peanut butter. If you wanted a banana milkshake, then whatever you want. You want a certain kind of ice cream, it's in the fucking fridge because you have a full kitchen in our room. Massage rooms, all the spa benefits, $25,000 nightclubs. I've been to every, Calvin Harris nightclub, table next to him. There's nothing we haven't done. Anything you can think of, I've got provided by a casino. I've flown on a Sikorsky to the Red Sox game when David Ortiz was retired with all of my kids. I hit 4 casinos in 35 days, and we were on a private jet to every single one, and in 3 countries, and flew to all of them. And at that time, I owed $2.5 million. And when I was done with that tour, I walked home I owed $0. Before I got there, I had $2.5 million in credit I owed. And when I got home, I had $400,000 in profit of what I made in the trip between all 4 casinos. And I had a 35-day vacation that would have cost, I don't know, $700,000, like literally, between the private planes, the rooms, and the expenditures.
Aside from the bookmaking, were you making money as a gambler or losing money?
I had some big years. So when I was counting cards and I was getting the kickbacks that I kind of discussed with you earlier as far as, because if you can learn to negotiate with the casinos properly and you fight for everything that you know. See, a lot of people don't understand how the comp system works. That is the most important thing to learn. And whoever's watching this can learn so much. They're supposed to give you around 30 to 35% of theoretical on your play at a casino. And if you grind them for that, you are going to get so much. Just what I just said, if you learn that and if you're a gambler, you just increase your odds dramatically of survival, or even maybe you'll lose, but you'll lose a lot less. It won't even become a problem as easy, because instead of losing 100,000, in the year, let's say, maybe because of the comp system, you're getting $50,000, $60,000 worth of comps you didn't even know about. But you have to understand the system. And the system is whatever your theoretical, and that's a number that spits out into a computer based on your hours of play and how much you bet per hand, are an equation, a number that you're supposed to lose. And they have to give you 30 to 35%. Every casino is different. And it also depends on what game you play. The higher the carnival games like roulette and Payout, it's a higher theoretical because you're more inclined to lose. But blackjack, baccarat, doesn't matter. You get that number, spits it out. And let's say, for example, in a 3 or 4 day trip, you got $100,000 in theoretical. You might have won $200,000. Doesn't mean you're going to lose 100. They still are obligated to give you roughly 30 to 35% of that comp. So when I would win, I would still grind them for the comps. So I was always over comp because I gambled so much, right? But the average person doesn't do that. So you just call your host or go to the VIP and say, what is my theoretical? And if they say 100,000, you have 30 to 35 grand in comps. So you just back everything out. How much is your room per night? 1,400 times 4. Okay, so there, do the math. I went to dinner. It was $800 at sushi. What was the cabana? Whatever you signed all the shit to your room, you deducted off that 35K number I just gave you, and you still have that much in comps. And I would leave where there's nothing else I could get. I already got everything covered, and they're not going to give you cash. They will never do that. So you grind them for other shit. Order wine to your room. I have a fucking wine collection at my house. I barely even drink wine. I have $300,000 worth of wine. Opus Ones, 100 Acres, Screaming Eagles. I have the nicest bourbon collection. Hardy Perfection, Cognac. I have all this stuff in my home. And it's all from casinos because I would grind for extra stuff. Most people don't do that. That's how you become non-profitable, though, because they realize that you are grinding and beating the system. You still might lose a lot of money because you're still gambling, but at least you're lowering your cost of loss. I mean, it's not stuff you want to purchase, right? I don't really want to go buy this wine, but at least I'm getting it where I wouldn't have if I didn't know how to grind. So that's going back to your question. I won $5.5 million at Cosmo. They cut me off, mostly in Baccarat, banned me. I'm barred from MGM Mirage. The Win barred me. And most of these places I was actually net winning. So once you start winning, they just cut you. They literally tell you.
How do they tell you? How do they inform you that
your host just says, sorry, you're no longer welcome on your property. Or you get a letter. Usually it's a letter first. And then you call the host and say, what the fuck?
Because you're making too much money at their casino.
Yeah, or even sometimes it's not even you making money. It's just that they deem you as a loser, like between the comps and what you're doing. And that's the part where I was like, wow, these guys they're criminal. Like they're basically saying a guy who has a chance can't come and only losers can come here. I get it. You're running a business. As a bookmaker, when I was running my operation, it's no different. When I had professionals that were coming through me, I'm a gambler, so I would take them longer than most, but there are a few people in the world that are professional sports bettors that you get rid of it. I get it. I do the same thing. It was rare. It was 1 out of 200 players, but this guy is running algorithms. I mean, he's not betting to gamble. He's betting a system, and he's beating the lines, and he's actually moving the lines. Like Billy Walters, you're familiar with him,
yeah,
right? I mean, that guy would come to my website, adios, cut him off, done, no thanks. He wouldn't come through a beard, of course. There's someone else, but you start to recognize the patterns, and these guys are pros. So I get the casino's theory, but it's truly criminal because you can only go there if you could lose. Yeah. So, but it's a business. I get it. But like the comp system is so important for an average person to understand. If you're gambling at a decent level, I mean, you're betting $50 a hand, doesn't matter, but if you're betting 1,000 or more per hand, I mean, you should look into that, whoever's watching this.
What was the biggest loss you took in bookmaking?
The biggest loss I ever had, I had these guys that were, as a family, they were probably a billionaire family, if not very high, hundreds of millions. And they were gambling really high at this time in Vegas too, all around Vegas. And they were betting through an agent of mine in Las Vegas. They got introduced to me, and they basically were betting they were brothers, and they were betting when all three brothers would bet, they would total almost $600,000 on a game.
Where were they from?
They were from Sacramento.
Okay.
And when they would bet like all three together, it was usually on New England Patriots, because Tom Brady at this time, this is like early Tom Brady, right when he was like amazing, but like kind of not Tom Brady yet. They were like friendly with him, so they loved him. So they just bet on him every week. And there was one particular year where Tom Brady just destroyed bookmakers because he would, not only did the Patriots win, it would go over. So like they would just blow everybody out, right? And so that particular year, I got destroyed, and they won $5.7 million. And I think I was 28 years old. So this goes back 20 years ago. I was either late 20s or early 30s. And I had to pull equity out of my property. I had to borrow money from friends. I had everything you can imagine to liquidate everything possible, because I wasn't wealthy, to pay that amount of money. And mind you, it wasn't in one weekend. It was over like, a course of weeks. But every week it was $600,000, $800,000. And next thing you know, it was $5.7 million. And I ran out of money. I had no more money. So I owed $440,000 that I couldn't pay. And it's definitely not the first or last time that I've been in that predicament. But to that level, it was high. So I said, fuck, man, I don't know what to do. I can't I can't borrow any more money. I mean, it's hard to get someone to just hand you $500,000, even though everyone knew me to be very up and down in my life and would always pay. People aren't liquid like that unless you're bookmakers or drug dealers or whatever. I mean, so to get 440 like on a fly, like fast, because you got to pay people on time or your reputation's shot. So I'm like, fuck, what do I do? So I called a buddy of mine, and he had a relationship with a sports book in Costa Rica, and they were illegal bookmakers, but they lived in Costa Rica because they couldn't come back here because they were so big that they would have got arrested on the spot. FBI was already looking into them, and they were at a big operation, so they had a lot of money. And I said, can I offer them to loan me money, and I'll move my business to them, and at least I could take care of this customer and then stay afloat, because there's no way I could keep Bookie even without these guys. Because what if I get beat just by my regular Joes? They win 200,000. I can't get another 200. So I needed someone to cover my action, and so we created a deal. It was great. They gave me 50% of all revenue. They loaned me the 440, and of the 440, obviously, if my customers lost 880, right, the first 440 would go to them because I got half, and then after that, I would get half of all the proceeds. So I had to move all my players to them, which was like, imagine like I basically lost my business, right? I mean, I had half of it, but it's still your baby. Like all of a sudden, you have no control. All the clients are now calling their operation, and even though I'm dealing with the customers, it just felt like it was really pride swallowing because I built this book of business for 10 years or whatever it was. So I move all the business, and the gambler mentality came out in me. I was like, fuck, how do I get this back? And of course, I was in the combination of still gambling in Vegas and being an idiot and, the wild up and down. But now I had really no money to go gamble in Vegas too. So I couldn't even go try to win money. And so my mentality was, all right, what if I just set up an account with these guys and I just gamble myself and just try to win it back? And so I used the story of these brothers want an account with you, of course, and which they did. I set up an account for them anyway, and I'll just fire on it and hope I get hot. Well, this is one time in my life it actually worked. So I started betting, and in 6 days, I won $1.1 million. And then the seventh day, it was a Sunday, it was NFL Sunday. I was like, fuck, man, I can't believe I'm up this much. But if I don't play on a Sunday, then I'm going to have a problem, because on Sunday, like for a bookmaker, if everyone bets all week long and they bet college and regular stuff, you want to see NFL action because it's the hardest sport to beat. And every bookmaker wants as much NFL bets as they can get. I don't care how professional you are, how good you are, betting NFL is the hardest, right? So I'm like, fuck, I got to fire still. And plus I'm degenerate, so I love the action. So here we go. Sunday, I take a risk. I mean, I was out. I had a $1.1 million coming to me, right? So I go for it, and I fire, and I get hot on Sunday again. So I net 1.5 million. I won another 400,000. So now technically I'm owed $1,060,000 on top of the 440, but they don't think it's me. So really I'm going to get paid 1.5 million. And my thought, I was like, oh, I'll just bleed them payments for the 440 or wait till my customers lose. Well, I get a phone call Sunday night after the last game. Hey man, we need you to come out to Costa Rica. And I was like, well, I was just there 2 weeks ago. Like, we already negotiated this deal, and it's our first week. I know the guys won a lot. Like, well, we'll talk in person. Just come on out. So I'm like, okay. Well, I already knew that why I was going as a problem. So my IP address is in Orange County, California. When you log on to a website, it shows exactly your location, right? City and state. Well, these guys lived in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas and Orange County are a little further apart from placing a bet, right? So I'm like, fuck, they obviously know. So I get on a plane, I fly out there. Monday around, 4 o'clock I get there, and I'm at this compound. It's a big sports book in the middle of nowhere. It's in Costa Rica. It's not in the city. They have some in the city. This one's kind of off the city a little bit. And they have guys with guns because it's a sports book, and Costa Rica can be unsafe at sometimes. So, Americans in Costa Rica with money, they're smart. They're well protected. So I'm like, fuck, man, these armed guards I'm going to see, I don't know how this is going to go. So they bring me in. I sit down there's a table, and there's 3 of them, and they're fucking arguing right in front of me, you know. They start asking me questions, and I said, yeah, what's the problem? And they're like, well, it's very obvious that these bets are coming from California. Would you explain that to us? And I said, I don't, maybe they went to California for the weekend. I don't know. What are you talking about? You know? And of course I'm lying through my teeth. And they said, well, we know it's you. We know it's you or one of your buddies or something, kid, you know? I said, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, I set up the fucking accounts. Just because these guys won the first week, you're going to cry like a baby and try to blame something else? I mean, are you just trying to find a reason not to pay? And they said, are you being a smart ass with us? And they start arguing amongst. And one guy says, just pay the fucking kid. Let's just be done with him. The other guy's, fuck him, you know? And they're literally talking like this in front of me. And I said, hey guys, I'm right here. Hello. Just for the record, I don't care what the fuck you guys say or what you think's going on here. You owe these guys this money, and I'm on the hook for it. It's my name. It's my obligation. It's your website. So you have 3 options. I just cut it off right there. I said, you have 3 options. 1, you can fucking take me in the field and have one of your little fucking guards blow my fucking brains out. Everyone knows where I am and why I'm here. Or 2, you can pay the debt. Or 3, you can not pay. So fucking make up your mind. I didn't fly over here for this shit. I brought you all my customers. Don't fucking treat me like I'm a fucking $2 hooker. I said, you don't want to pay? Don't pay. Let's see what happens. And I think they were kind of stunned because as opposed to like cowering to them and caving like they thought, I just stuck with my story, which was a complete lie. And so they're arguing, and the one guy says, oh, fuck this kid. I'm not paying him shit. And he walks out of the room. I said, no problem, Larry. And the other guy, he says to me, you know what, let's just go. Come on. I'm going to drive you back to the airport. Let me see if we can get you on a flight right now. So we had this awkward drive. I had to go, first of all, go back to they checked me in this like Holiday Inn shit hotel.
What city are you in?
It's not San Jose. It's like just outside San Jose.
Okay. And
so I grab my bag. We go to the hotel, grab my bag. He stays in the car, go down. He books me a flight. And on the way to the airport, he's driving. He says, you know, kid, he was the nicest one. He said, I'm the one fighting for you to get this money. He said, you know, but we all know that, you know, it wasn't them placing the bets. You're trying to get me to cough it up. I said, listen, man, you guys can believe whatever you want. I said, but at the end of the day, you took the bets. You're a very big operation, and I have to go home and deal with it. So however you want to handle it, it's up to you. But I promise you, this is going to be a very bad situation. Your reputation's at stake, so you guys decide. So I landed, and guess what? He said, call me when you land. I landed. LAX, literally, I would say I drove, I don't know, 5-10 miles, Hawthorne Boulevard, I'll never forget it. Pulled off to a parking lot. That's where they told me to go. This guy drove up, handed me a duffel bag. It was $1,060,000. I grabbed the money and I drove home. And they said, he said, quote for quote, the runner guy. He said, they told me to tell you, good luck, and they're done with you, and move all your customers out of here immediately. I said, okay. So it was like the greatest situation for me because I got my business back, I got my customers back, and now I have $1 million to be back in action. It was the dumbest mistake that I ever made because I saved my business. I mean, I would have been fine the other way, but they would have owned me, you know. And so I got back home. I immediately moved all my business back, which is a pain in the ass, but it was a great move, and I never looked back. I never had that situation again where I had to move my business. So I learned to somewhat manage my situations. I still have these mounds of ups and downs, but I manage them better. I mean, I learned from my mistake a little bit, but I still have many moments of where I'm fucking sitting in a cold shower going, fuck, man, I fucking just lost $3 million. You know, I had a dice roll one time in the Dominican Republic. I had a $2 million credit line, and the best roll I've ever had in my life. I had $88,000 left, and I was fucking beside myself. Because first of all, you're far away from home. I can't get any money. And you know, when you can't feed the drug. And once the 88 grand is gone, I'm fucked. They already asked for a TTO. A TTO is an extension, and they wouldn't give it to me. And I said, I don't want to be stuck here for another 4 days, and I can't gamble. It's like fucking hell. I'd rather just go home. Because even though most people can go enjoy the beach and everything, it's like I'm down $2 million. I don't want to be here. So I go to the crap table, and I pull the 88,000. I ask for a reserve table by myself so no one else could roll, and I max the table out, very first roll, right? And 88,000 doesn't max the table, but I'm at max my 88,000. So I put, I think it was 5,000 on the pass, or 10,000 on the pass line, and then whatever I rolled, let's say it was a 10, 3 times odds, so 30,000 behind, and then I bet the 10 for as much as I could, so I'm praying I hit the 10, and then whatever other money I put on all the rest of the numbers. It wasn't that much. I rolled the dice for 48 minutes, $3.2 million. I won in 48 minutes, paid the $2 million, cashed out the 1.2, and fucking got the fuck out of there. And it was like the most euphoric. I've won more money than that, but to win in 48 minutes and roll the dice by yourself straight for that long, I should have won even more. It's because I started, it took me a while to roll that, whatever number it was, 10 or 4 or whatever. I was rolling all these numbers, but I wasn't really making any money. I was just doubling up, the small amounts that I had on it. Mm-hmm. If I would have jammed the table max, which I have many times, to start, I would have won 6 or 7 million. But it just took so long.
But what was your biggest win ever as a gambler?
Honestly,
the Chiefs?
Yeah, 4.6 on the Chiefs was the most I've ever won.
What was your biggest weekend as a bookmaker?
I would say, well, technically it was the 10 million I won off that bet, but I didn't get paid. I mean, that by far was the best. But the Ipe Mizuhara time, I had $6 million weeks with him.
Really?
Yeah. Because he was betting 100,000 a game on soccer games, 20, 30 games a day. So, I don't know if you saw the court records, but he bet $326 million in bets through my website in 14 months.
I mean, I assume like right now you're in a very stressful situation. Like every weekend you're either miserable or you're ecstatic, right?
When I'm booking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never felt miserable, even when I lost, because to be honest with you, Mark, my business was bulletproof as far as not FBI side government, but making money, it was bulletproof.
Being a bookmaker.
I could never lose. Long run, no chance. The worst year and the worst I wouldn't lose because I had too many customers, I had too much variance and too much, offsetting action, and just the only way I could really lose is if every favorite and every over won every week in football, which will never happen.
Never happen.
Yeah, and even this year is the worst year. I mean, I'm not booking, and this would have been the worst year I've had since they said 1997 in sports books.
Why is that?
Favorites and overs. Very less parity this year in the NFL than almost any year. So if you go look at those, right now, Las Vegas as a sports book, they had the worst year since 1997, all because of Kansas City Chiefs, all these great teams, Lions, whatever. We're just covering every week and winning, and they just got destroyed this year. And when I say destroyed, they still make money. They're not making, the millions that they're used to. But that's my point. You still don't lose because you have everything on your side. And as long as you can get paid on most of your business as illegal, you can't lose.
Do you have any regrets in your? How old are you now?
I'll be 50 in 2 months.
You'll be 50.
Yeah.
Do you have any? What's your biggest regret?
I'll answer this way. My biggest regret is putting my wife and my family through what we're currently going through.
Right.
That's my biggest regret.
It's going to be interesting to talk to your wife.
Yeah,
which I'm about to do.
It is. She's a tough girl, man, and amazing. I'm blessed to have her because she's been so supportive and had my back, and a lot of women would have ran, going through this, and not even because she loves me, but a lot of women would just run because it's such a traumatic experience. Like anyone who has never been through an FBI, scandal, let's call it, they have no idea what it's. Even I didn't know the in depths of the dark areas and just moments of anxiety and not knowing, and especially when you have kids. I have a 3-year-old boy. It's like I'm going to tell my son and my 14-year-old daughter that Daddy's going to jail and I'll be back in a year or two. It's like that's traumatic. If I didn't have kids, it'd be a little different, right? If I was on my own, no problem. I mean, it would still suck, but all the ups and downs. Do I regret it? No. I mean, I'm sitting here. I've done everything you can imagine, and
you're an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, for sure. I love dopamine.
And that's hard to find another career that's as exciting as this, right?
It is. It's going to be tough. But, there's a point of like, at this stage of my life, I do need to ground it a little bit more. And then, I've always enjoyed life and been present, but really present, with my kids and my wife is probably the thing I'm really focusing on more now. Is just like, because sometimes I'd be there, but I wasn't fucking there because I had so much going on. Mm-hmm. I could be talking to you, but I'm thinking about 20 other things. Right. It's like, am I really even listening to you? I'm just nodding. I'm saying, yeah, okay, Mark, it's great. But I'm thinking about there's a fucking football game on.
Hoping that the Eagles cover.
Yeah, and it's hard not to. You got $2 million riding on this game, and your daughter's telling you about volleyball or school, and it's like, yeah, I care about that more than anything. But can you wait 20 more minutes so I can see the end of this game? Because it's going to affect whether you go to college or not. So it's weird. But now I don't have that. Now I could be more present. But the other thing I have is that dark circle of, instead of the football game in the back of my mind is, am I going to prison? Do I need to call my lawyer? What do I need to do? I have to go to Gamblers Anonymous now. I got to see a mental health therapist. There's all these requirements I'm under that are tough, I mean, the court appointed me to see a mental health therapist.
Really?
I mean, technically you could argue I have mental health, right?
Yeah,
Who bets $4 million on a fucking football game? Me.
Which seems like such an empty, meaningless career path.
For sure.
Or a way to spend your life.
Yeah. I mean,
and a ton of stress.
100%. I'll be 50, right? And I probably lived 100 inside, and I'm sure health-wise it's had to play a toll. You just may not see it.
I remember when I interviewed Archie Karras.
Okay.
Who's probably another generation, but kind of the same story as yours.
Yeah.
He said the stress is it's ruined his life.
Yeah.
And his health.
I don't think it's ruined my life. It's definitely hurt it though. Ruined is the wrong word because.
Well, he was quite a bit older.
Yeah, that's true.
When I interviewed him.
Maybe I'll say that in 20 years. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I doubt it though, because I chose this, and I know
you seem healthy.
Yeah, I'm pretty healthy. I don't have any health ailments at all, but shit, it could change overnight, right? I mean, I've seen it all. But I'll be honest. I've managed my health. I've always worked out. I've always ate pretty clean, and I try to take care of myself. I do cold plunges. I do, I have a sauna in my house and all that. But I think there's a part of me that gets off on the stress. Mm-hmm. Clearly. And
some people couldn't handle it.
Yeah, no question.
And other people get off on it.
You're right. And I wish I didn't sometimes, but I also am glad I do because it motivates me. And maybe I'm going to, I hope, use it to find my next, chapter, which I'm very confident that if we have another one of these in 5 years from now, mm-hmm. I have a feeling you're going to see some headlines of where I go with this. And I think you'll be impressed.
That'd be interesting.
I would not bet against me.
And so your wife, Nicole, who I'm going to talk to, she is, you would picture her to be a gold digger. And she's not? She doesn't seem to be.
I met her, Mark. She was a waitress at a Mexican restaurant, working hard, and then selling her athletic wear company that she has now on the side, building it. Like just started it maybe a year before I met her. And she was grinding, man, working hard. Graduated at USC, speaks 2 languages. Well, actually 3, but her Japanese language is come off quite a bit. But anyway, she's very intelligent. And I'm 12 years older than her. So I thought at the time, here's this beautiful young woman I'm probably going to have fun with, and I'll be done with it. I have 4 kids. She's going to want nothing to do with me. But, I was living the high life. We're flying on private jets, and it's easy to lure women in with those type of things. And man, she was quite the opposite. I mean, when I took her on, like one of our first dates. She came to Las Vegas. I didn't fly him in. I was already there, and she brought a girlfriend there for protection, just to, not feel like it's a date per se. And they came in with a cooler into a 10,000 square foot villa with a butler, and I was dying laughing because here's these young girls, they're 28, and they had a fucking cooler. What they didn't realize is I had Cristal and every liquor you can imagine. But when you're 28 years old and broke, you bring your own liquor to the party, right? And it was just reminding me of like when I was once young and broke. And I was like, no, you don't need a cooler. We have the real stuff here, Cristal, and they never had Cristal or whatever. So it was really cool. But to watch her progress and still not be about money, even to this day, she has nice things. She has $300,000 worth of purses, and diamond rings that are $200,000 engagement rings and wedding rings, but nothing's faced her. She's still, to this day, not about money.
And she's stuck by you through thick and thin.
She really has. And even now, like, I had a very, very uncomfortable conversation with her 16 months ago. When this first happened, I looked her in the eyes. I love her so much. I said,
the raid?
Yeah, right after the raid. And, I said to her, if there's ever a time for you to leave, it'd be now. I mean, you're 37 years old. You're beautiful. We have a little boy. He's young. You clearly have your own business. You make your own money. Maybe not a ton of money yet, but you're building your business. And I said, we have no debt. I'm going to have a lot of debt with the IRS and all kinds of problems, but I'll deal with that on my own. Like, this is my undoing. If you want to leave, we can tell everybody that it's not like you left because it got hard, that you just, things didn't work out between us, and I will never badmouth you. And she knows I wouldn't, because she's an amazing mother and person. And I said, listen, man, you have guys jumping at you even though we're married every which way. So you can meet a rich guy, a normal guy, whatever you want. And I said, I swear to God, it will be the hardest thing I've ever done to let you go. But out of love and respect for you, I get it. And I was like crying when I was telling her this. And she looked at me and says, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, literally, I'm here for the long haul. And I was like, wow, what a moment I had with my wife, and she meant it, Here we are 16 months later, and we have moments where it's like, fuck, this is tough, man.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So she's the real deal, man. I don't even know how I got her or how I keep her, but I try to be real. I'm on.
Well, no, you're very likable, straightforward. You can see that you're very capable. And you'd probably be successful at anything you did. I mean, you were a commodities trader?
Yeah, I was a Series 3 licensed broker. To tell you the story in a nutshell, when I was 18 years old, I got caught selling weed out of my house with my mom when I'm back to the 4 boys and her raising us. And so she kicked me out, did the right thing. And so I went and got an apartment with my ex-wife, actually, who we're all real close with, Nicole and I both. I have 3 daughters with my ex-wife. And her and I were met at 15, and at 18 years old, we moved out. We got an apartment, and I was working 2 jobs to pay rent, at that time. And rent was like, I don't know, $800 a month or something. It wasn't much, but to me, it was a ton. So long story short, we were going nowhere. And I said to my ex, I said, hey, let's figure our own lives out. And so we're going to break up. And then we found out she was pregnant. And I was 18. I said, I can't even fucking take care of myself. How the hell am I going to take care of a baby? Wow, I got to fucking grow up fast. So we decided to move in with my mom, who lost our home. As I told you, we were struggling to keep it. So my mom lost the home, and she moved to a double-wide trailer in Dana Point, California. And imagine, we grew up as the kids are on the block with everything. And now I'm moving into the couch, because there's only 2 bedrooms. My little brother lived in one room, my mom in the other. And my ex-wife and I were sleeping on the couch of a mobile home park. And that was, to me, demoralizing, right? But also prideful at the same time. You know what? Fuck it, man. I mean, everyone's been through shit. It's not who you are, it's who you become. So I got a job at a local restaurant. It was called Chevy's. They just opened in Dana Point, California. And I went into the job. It's a brand new restaurant, so there's nobody in there yet. The GM's interviewing people. I walk up to him. I say, hey, here's my little cheap resume. It has nothing on it. And I said, I'd like to be a waiter. And he says, well, you've never worked at a restaurant. I can't hire you as a waiter, but I can give you a job as a busboy. And I was like, a busboy? I envision a busboy as a guy that barely speaks English and provides chips and salsa, but okay, I need a job. Let's do it. So within 2 months, I was making more as a busboy than the waiters. And that's because I had a personality. I was talking to the customers. Obviously at that point, I could just do chips and salsa and water, but I would do anything above and beyond that. Even when the waiters failed, I would step up. And I was getting tipped more than them, so they were getting upset. So mind you, the customers would come in. They started asking for me. And the GM's like, you're not even a waiter. And they're asking to sit in Matt's sections. What is going on here, And it was really cool because I met a couple, and they came in and they said, hey, we really like you, kid. Would you be interested in a job? And I said, I'll take it. And I said, take it. You don't even know what it is. I said, it doesn't matter. Anything to move up in my life. So I drove down. I had this piece of shit car that my ex-wife and I shared. It was $400. We paid for it. Had holes in the bottom of it. You could see the ground in some spots. And I drove the car down to this place in Irvine. And it was called Barron's Worldwide Financial Services. It's a commodities firm. I didn't even know what commodities were. And I saw these Lamborghinis, Mercedes, and Ferraris parked out front. I was like, fuck. So I obviously went to Marshall's and bought this cheap, shitbag shirt and tie. Looked like a normal kid at 18 that doesn't even know how to dress himself with a tie. I had to learn how to put the tie on. And I walk in this interview, and this guy grills me for an hour and a half and tells me basically how retarded I am, that I don't have a college degree, that I wasted my life away. And I was like, looked at this guy, and after about an hour of being belittled, I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, I'm here for a reason. I said, you can take all of your college degrees and you can waste your time in college, or you could be successful in your own way. I don't need to go to college to prove my worth to you. I said, whatever this job entails, I'll do it better than anyone here. Just give me a chance. So he fell for it. He gave me a job. And the job was great because I was his personal assistant along with the mail boy. And I got $1,200 a month. I was working 60 hours a week. And I felt like I was on top of the world watching these guys just make all this money. I didn't even know what the hell it was. So because I was in the mailroom, the first contact, because there was no internet then, first contact was a phone call from a prospect. And I would transfer it to the broker of the day, and I would listen because we had the three-way caller where once I patch it through, I could stay on the phone and hit mute on my headset. And I would listen to these guys sell. And I was like, you know what? This is awesome. I'm getting sales training. I'm learning what commodities are. Don't even know what it is. So I took the Series 3 exam, the practice test. I just started studying it in my off hours, knowing I have a baby coming, right? I got to fucking get my life in order. So as I studied, 3 months went by. I went up to the owner, and I said to him, his name was Mickey. I said, Mickey, I want to take the Series 3 exam. He looked at me and laughed and said, you're in the mailroom. We don't offer the Series 3 exam only, to assistant brokers who are training and studying and understand the markets. I said, I'll pass it. He says, it costs us $400 to put you in the exam, and we're not going to waste the money. I said, if I don't pass it, you could fire me. And he says, you're going to risk your job? You're so happy here. You're doing a great job. No, let's not do that. I said, if I don't pass, fire me. I'll risk my job, being a gambler, of course. And he said, you're that confident? You've been studying? I said, yeah. Ask me. Here's the flashcards. Ask me any questions. So he looked at the flashcards I made and asked me a couple, and I answered them. He said, all right, let's do it. So I went and took the exam. I passed. It was a two-part exam. You have to have a 70% or higher. And I got a 73 on one and like an 80-something on the other. And I fucking was like in tears driving home from that exam. You're on a camera. It's a government exam. And so he hired me for the top broker. And then when I was 21 years old, I purchased the house my mom lost, 11602 Rubal Drive in Cypress, California. Oh. And it was about $540,000 back then, and five something. And I moved in there with my little girl, my ex-wife, and it was 2,700 square foot home. It's a big house. To me it was huge. And it was mine. My parents lost it, and I purchased that home.
What a great story.
Yeah, it was really cool. But fast forward, when I was 25 years old, so now I'm running the company, literally. I hired all these kids from my high school, recruited all these people because they couldn't believe my story. Here I am, 21. I purchased a house in my old neighborhood. So all the kids in the neighborhood, 3 years ago, I was fucking a deadbeat, having a baby, living in a trailer park. And here I am, just bought a $500,000+ house. So it didn't matter what I was doing, right? They just wanted a job of that magnitude. So I hired literally 40 kids, roughly 40, from my neighborhood. And they all came to work with me. And now I was training them all. So at 25 years old, my owner sold our company to a company called Refco. And in that process, he had to stay on with the company and run it. So they had us fly out to a company called Len Waldock in Chicago. The owner asked me to move there for 6 months to train all these guys. So I walk into this huge company, six level corporation, 600+ employees. All these guys have been doing this longer than I've been alive, literally. And the department I was doing was called Len Plus. So the retail brokers. And I broke every record in the country for commissions and retail sales. And so Mickey introduces me. I'm in this big boardroom, guys in suits, and they're worth a lot of money. I've been doing this for 30 years. And he says, this is the kid that's going to train you guys. And I just look at their faces like, this fucking 25-year-old punk is going to teach us shit. You could just feel it, So he has me stand up and I have to give a sales presentation, right? I said, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how great I am because I'm literally younger than some of your children. So what I'm going to do is this. Today's Friday. Tomorrow's our first day. You're going to come in on a Saturday, which I know you don't normally do. I just need 2 hours of your time. I want you to go back to your desk. I want you to grab 10 of the hardest leads and the most shitbag leads you have that you can't close. You bring them to me tomorrow morning. I'm going to go on an intercom sales phone call throughout this entire corporation, and I'm going to dial every fucking one of these leads, and it's going to be on the intercom, and you're going to hear every fucking phone call. And I'm going to show you exactly what I can do. I'm going to show you what my sales are all about. And then you can decide if you want to learn from me. Because I look like a punk kid to you, and this is exactly the way I said it, so they understood that I know what they're thinking. I said, so proof's in the pudding. Let's see if I'm any good at what I'm telling you. Next day, we come in. I closed $188,000 in sales, which in commodities is actually decent. It's not like stocks. For every person that opens a commodity account, this is 20 plus years ago, if you put $10,000 in a commodity account, you put $500,000 in stocks. It's a risky investment. It's more of a lotto ticket. So I raised $188,000. I took these dog shit leads and turned them into some equity. I showed them that keeping someone on the phone, mirroring the customer, learning how to sell is 90% of it's common sense actually, because they would just play numbers games. So they had these like leads come in so easy. It was very easy for them. But what I showed them was I called the guy in a great example in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I said to the guy, hey, John, how you doing? And, hey, what's up? Who is this? It's Matt from Lynn Waldock. And I'm like, you guys keep calling me. What is your problem? I've already told you no 16 times. I said, listen, I spoke to you 6 weeks ago. Don't you remember? Never spoke to the guy in my life. And he says to me, I don't know. You guys just keep calling, What is it you need? I said, John, hold on a second. I know you don't remember when we spoke, but right now it's 13 degrees in Wisconsin? Fucking, did you see what happened with the Brett Favre and the Packers game last week? I mean, that was atrocious performance he put on against the Vikings. I start talking about something that he related to. For 3 minutes, we're talking about Green Bay Packers and how they sucked that game and this and that. Commodities wasn't even part of the conversation. After 3 minutes go by, he's dropped his guard. Now I'm likable. Now we get back into business. Hey, John, listen. Have you seen the soybean report that came out last week? I know that you didn't talk about this much, but have you seen what's coming out? No, what is that? Well, guess what? We have the biggest frost we've seen in 30 years. And if soybeans do what we anticipate, they're going to double in the next 6 months. Do you really want to miss out on that opportunity? Take $10,000, just give us an opportunity, let me work with you, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can put some real money in down the road. Just give me a little try. And next thing you know, I get guys like that to send me 10K, 20K, whatever. And these guys were enamored by the fact that I just was closing leads that they gave up on. And so I had all their respect. So we doubled their year over revenue within a year, and I was out of there in 6 months. And, I did that to help my boss because he gave me the loyalty and the start in my life. And that was my sales training.
Wow. It's an impressive story.
Thank you.
Tell me about the raid.
The raid.
What is it like to be raided?
Well, it's happened to me twice. The first one, in 2014, I was getting off an airplane from Las Vegas, ironically, in March Madness, and I just blew about $800,000. But I had a discount, as I discussed with you. I get a discount back on my losses. So I don't remember the amount I had in my car. It was like 80 grand, I think. And so I get in the car and I land. I got a call from an FBI agent, and he says to me, hey, by the way, he called me 2 weeks earlier. Asking about Owen Hansen, which you're familiar with. Yes. So, he says to me, hey, I know we spoke about Owen last week or 2 weeks ago, but I'm in the neighborhood. I have a few more questions for you. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. And to be clear, when I spoke to the agent 2 weeks ago, I just told him I played golf with Owen. Owen's a friend of mine, and what Owen does, for a living or what he's into is none of my business. Of course, that wasn't what he wanted to get out of me, but I'm not going to rat on my friend. So long story short, now I'm wondering, what the fuck does he want? He obviously wants more information. So I'm driving home, and I get another phone call from my neighbor, and it says, Matt, it looks like World War V in front of your house. There's fucking cops and SWAT and all kinds of shit. And I was like, oh, my God. So obviously he was already there at my house. So I had my car with my daughter and my ex. They took them to a Pollo Loco, and I said, there's 80 grand in the car, took off my watch and said, I'm going to run from here. It was like a half a mile because there's no reason to pull up with all this cash and watches. I knew they're going to take everything. So I run to the place. I'm literally running down a hill in Aliso Viejo, knowing that I'm walking into a raid. And I come out, and next thing you know, they detain me immediately, cuff me, take me in the home, raid the house for 4 or 5 hours, take all the cash. I had cash in Letterman's jackets from when I was in high school. You hide it everywhere you can. They found everything. And they let me go. I signed an abandonment form. So I'm like, okay. But here now, this recent raid, which was October 5th, 2023, I was putting my 3-year-old son in my wife's G-Wagon to take him to the park.
This was because of the Ohtani case.
This is because of the Ohtani. Yeah, well, more than just the Ohtani. Ohtani had a lot to do with it. In truth, they didn't know about Ohtani at this time. I was being raided because I was one of the largest bookmakers in the world, and I was moving millions and millions of dollars and gambling millions and millions of dollars, and my operation was huge. The Ohtani part, they didn't even know about until later. Oh. Yeah. They just knew I had clients of that value. Maybe not that value, but they knew I had a lot of celebrities and athletes. So when I was putting my son in the car, I hear FBI freeze, and I literally thought someone was fucking joking around because, how often do you hear that in your lifetime? And I was putting his seatbelt on, this little buckle I'm in a car seat, and I look over and I have 8 red dots on me and AR rifles pointing at me. And they had like the helmet, the mask, that big old, whatever they use, that thing to barge down the door. They had that thing ready. And I was like, holy fuck, like my life just changed. Like I knew this time, I knew it was going to be ugly. I knew it wasn't going to be, hey, how much money do you have? And let's sign an abandonment form. And I just knew, like, in my core. So then they of course detained me, pulled me aside, and then I don't know, after the dog and 7 more people went in the home because they come in shifts, right? There was 29 of them. I think 26 men, 3 girls, and a dog. And then of course the dog and the crew, they asked me, who's in the house? And I said, my wife. And then we had a handyman in there, and they said, all right. So they go in the house, and here comes my wife, fucking handcuffed, walking out, and the handyman, both handcuffed. I'm just like, oh my God. And I hear her kind of like, my home is a big home, 6,800 square feet, but I'm outside, but I hear like the crying as she's coming through the garage. And I'm just like, oh my God. For me, it's like, give me all that pain, right? And when you can't take it away from your loved one and your family, it's like the worst feeling in the world for me. And I just knew that it was going to be a really rough day. So they pulled her out, and they went in and did their thing for like an hour because they have to secure the premise, right? And they just make sure there's no weapons, there's other people or whatever. And they're looking for everything that's possible, guns, drugs, money, whatever. And they let my wife go, take my son, get him out of there. And it was just me and the FBI. And of course, I wouldn't talk. And so that didn't make them very happy. But I had to go open every safe, show them where every dollar was. They tore it upside down for 8 hours. So they're finding everything anyway. That dog's professionally trained for a reason. But that moment for me was just, I have nightmares about it still.
How much money did they get?
They actually got $270,000 in cash, and then a lot of casino chips and some gold bars. And then they took all my wife's jewelry, not all, a lot of my wife's jewelry and a lot of her purses. And she has a very good purse collection, probably $300,000 worth of Chanel's and Louis Vuittons and whatever. So they took all of that. And of course, they took all my watches, which I now have back, as you could see. They gave me back my watches.
What about her purses?
They gave back the purses too.
They did?
Yeah, not the money, not the gold, not the casino chips. But I owe $1.6 million in restitution, which I have to pay in the next 60 days. And then I owe the IRS about $7 million between state and federal, which I'm being penalized right now about $35,000 a month in interest.
Wow.
And then that's just for 2023. So I don't know, the repercussions of how far they're going to go back and come after me for previous stuff. I did pay a lot in taxes, but what I found out is that they don't deem, basically they deem like when I pay out money to customers, it didn't seem so relevant to them. What they were worried about is just taxable money that came in. I was like, well, if I lose $9 million in a casino, why wouldn't I be able to write that off against my gains? Because it's all, to me, it's a professional business I was running.
It's all part of the...
It is. And I used that as a marketing tool. When I went to casinos, I played golf with Charles Barkley, Travis Kelce. I was playing the Celebrity Pro-Am every year with these high-profile athletes. And I was betting more than all of them at the tables. I was the biggest gambler there. So when I'm there gambling, $50, $60, $100,000 a hand, these guys are enamored by me, and I'm just a regular Joe. When I went to Monte Carlo with my wife, I won $1.4 million, and there were sheiks and Russian, people with more money you can ever imagine in Monte Carlo, right? That's the richest place in the world. And I was betting more than most of them, literally. But I didn't have their type of money, but you would think I did, because I just had the balls to bet it all. And what I'm getting at is all these people I'm around have more money than most, and they don't have, they're smart enough not to gamble most of it away like I was. But in that process, like what I learned is these guys, these celebrities and, athletes or whatnot, they seem to be enamored by the fact that I wasn't enamored by them. When I played golf with them, I don't need their autograph. I wasn't trying to, I was impressed by them, but they're still regular people, no different than you and I. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're really good at something is amazing, but so are you and so am I. Maybe in something different, we don't get paid as much, but you're great at what you do, and I think I'm great at what I do.
It takes balls of steel, doesn't it, to do what you did?
They say I have elephant balls. That's what I've been told. I do believe that I'm seasoned to it, but you definitely can't be afraid. I've been many moments of like, I swear to you, whatever dollar I get my hands on, I'm fucking firing it. There's a moment in my book I talk about. I had some outstanding markers through a friend of mine who was gambling for me, and I was still gambling after I got raided for a little while. And of course, once I saw the judge and I was told I can't gamble anymore, otherwise I'd go to prison, I stopped. But I was still gambling because I had no more income, and that's all I knew. So we went to Pachanga a couple times, and he owed some markers, and I had to come up with $300,000, and I had there's a part in my book you'll read. I think I had $142,000 to my name. So what did I do? I just sent a buddy of mine out to Vegas, and he bet the whole thing on the Angels, and they won in the ninth inning. I'll never forget it, against the Tampa Bay Rays. And they were down 4-2. They came back and won the game 5-4. So I cashed out. I got $280-something thousand. So I borrowed $20,000 and gave him the $300 so he could pay the markers, and I cleared that debt. And if I would have lost that game, I had $0, and my income is gone. So that bet felt to me almost bigger than the $4 million I had in the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's the point I was talking about earlier, where it's all relative to how much money you have and what you bet. There's guys that when I was forced to go to Gamblers Anonymous, which turned out to be actually, therapeutic for me actually. Because clearly I have a gambling problem, but I was envisioning myself higher than these people because I gambled so high and I made so much money, but it's all relative. Like my problem is even worse than theirs probably, right? Because I was able to feed the addiction more. They probably would bet $4 million too if they could. But anyway, these guys this one kid got up there and he worked at Home Depot, and he was stealing money from his parents and lost every paycheck, and obviously had credit card debt. And that's no different. It's just a different dollar amount. You take away 3 zeros. My story is bigger because there's 3 more zeros. But this poor kid is going through the same emotions I am, and no different, right? He could recover a little quicker because his debt might be $16,000 or whatever, and mine's $10 million, but it's no different feeling, and it's no different than a crack addict on the street who has an addiction problem to Charlie Sheen. It's just Charlie Sheen has the money to continue the problem or can mask it better. So if you kind of look at addiction, a lot of it has to do with your financial background and how you can manage it and handle it. And I believe that strongly. And my addiction is so high and the numbers are so big because I had the business to give me the, fortitude.
To support it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing story.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Matt. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the luck in the world in April.
I'm going to need it. Thank you.
You're going to need it. Thank you, man. When I was designing the first Software Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.